The throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1226 The Queen's Gift. They really built a statue for me. Xia Xingchen blushed. He thought the queen was just talking, but she actually did it as agreed. Oh, you're shy? So cute. The queen smiled. In her impression, Xia Xingchen was always cold and looked full of thoughts, but extremely crazy when fighting. She didn't expect that he would be shy sometimes. It feels a bit too much. Actually, I didn't do anything. It was more for myself. Xia Xingchen lowered his head and said, too much? Not at all. In the universe, no one is not for himself. In your words, if you don't work for yourself, you will be punished by heaven and earth. The prophet believes in your savior, and I also believe that you are the savior. Then, my people also believe that you are the savior. That's enough, isn't it? Said the queen. Yeah. Xia Xingchen took a breath and nodded. The queen did this, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It was of great benefit to Xia Xingchen. The source of faith can condense the power of faith, transform it into pure spiritual power, and strengthen Xia Xingchen's spirit. If the entire Liang clan believed that Xia Xingchen was the savior, respected him, and worshipped him, then the total amount of faith power that would be gathered would be very astonishing. As for how much help the power of faith could bring to Xia Xingchen, this would require a slow wait. After all, it would take some time to gather faith. Let's go. In the future, there will be more and more statues of your savior on Wanshi Star, and even every household will worship your portraits and sculptures. The queen smiled and waved her hand, saying, follow me, I have a gift for you. The queen knew very well that the Liang clan must rely on Xia Xingchen in the future. The stronger Xia Xingchen's strength, the more secure the safety of the Liang clan would be. After returning to the palace, the queen took Xia Xingchen to her underground treasury. There were countless treasures in the treasury. The Liang clan regarded stones as beautiful, and most of the treasures in the treasury were gemstones, sapphires, cat's eyes, diamonds. There were so many things that Xia Xingchen's eyes hurt. It's beautiful, but it's useless. Xia Xingchen grabbed a huge diamond and sighed. Things are valuable because they are rare. The rarer something is, the higher its price. In the Earth Age, humans also experienced a period of hoarding gold, silver and jewelry. Until now, some Navo-rich still can't help but fill their vaults with jewelry. Because, for a planet, the deposits of rare metals are limited. Gold, silver and jewelry still have some value because of their rarity. However, if you look at the entire galaxy, rare metals are no longer rare. Even in the universe, you can find meteorites of almost pure gold and asteroids covered with diamond veins. Gold, silver and jewelry have lost their past value in the era of the universe. Of course, there are still many wealthy people who like to collect gold, silver and jewelry, but what they care about is not their texture, but the artistic value of these works of art themselves. I'm not showing you these vulgar things. The queen curled her lips and said, follow me. At the end of the underground treasure house, the queen opened a huge stone door and explained, this place is the home of the Liang clan. I shouldn't have brought you here. But, for the future of the Liang clan, come in. Xia Xingchen followed into the stone chamber, and immediately felt a wave of heat coming over her face. The air became extremely hot. Xia Xingchen saw at a glance that the stone chamber was filled with a large number of energy crystals. Energy crystals that the three-legged crows turned into after their death. The Liang clan has a long history of hunting three-legged crows, tens of thousands of years. Countless of my ancestors, regardless of life and death, risked their lives to climb the Liang star and hunt three-legged crows. There are only 5 corpses that can be successfully brought back. If you need them, take them all. The queen whispered. Exactly 5. Xia Xingchen's heart trembled. On the design drawing, it was stated that 5 to 10 three-legged crows were needed to manufacture the Suzuki Mecha. 5 three-legged crows can create a Suzuki Mecha, but the performance is a little worse. 10 three-legged crows are needed for the Suzuki Mecha to reach its peak state. Unfortunately, Xia Xingchen used all his skills and only hunted down 5 three-legged crows. The other three-legged crows gathered together and evolved into Suzaku, imprisoned by the stellar will of the Liang star. Xia Xingchen thought that he would never be able to gather enough three-legged crow materials in this life, nor would he be able to see a complete Suzuki mecha. Unexpectedly, there are 5 three-legged crows transformed into energy crystals in the underground treasure house of the Liang clan. It's useful, so useful. Then I'll take it shamelessly. Xia Xingchen was so excited that he rubbed his hands and couldn't hide his smile. The Suzuki mecha is already very strong now. If it absorbs 5 more energy crystals and transforms into a complete body, how strong will it be at that time? Xia Xingchen himself is also looking forward to it. Next, Xia Xingchen immediately contacted the star domain arc through the space-time beacon and asked the spacecraft to go near Wanshi star. He boarded the ship with 10,000 Liang expeditionary force and immediately returned to the Chaos Star domain. Kinjana was in charge of post-war reconstruction in the Star Alliance on the Azure Star and could not get away. Therefore, Li Huami, as the temporary captain of the Star Domain Arc, led the Bloody Mary Star Pirates and the Blood Demon Group and spent 3 days to reach the coordinate point set by Xia Xingchen. In terms of flight speed, the Star Domain Arc is much faster than the Qinglang Mecha. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thousands of light spots flew out of the atmosphere of Wanshi Star and flew towards the Star Domain Arc under the leadership of a fiery redbird mecha. On the Star Domain Arc, Li Huami, Tixing, Blood Demon and others were all shocked when they saw so many Liang warriors. How did the Marquis do it? He actually succeeded in recruiting soldiers from the Fiery Sun clan. The Fiery Sun clan is an extremely powerful existence among the many races in the Milky Way. It's just that their numbers are too small. Even so, they have not completely surrendered to the huge human galactic empire. This shows that their strength is indeed very strong. The strength of the Fiery Sun clan is as well known as their stubbornness. Everyone's face showed an expression of disbelief. My spaceship is in front. The Starfield Arc. In the starry sky, Xia Xingchen flew in the front in the Suzuki mecha and turned to a Fiery Sun clan man and said, "The Fiery Sun clan man's name is Zaka, and he is the Legion commander of 10,000 Fiery Sun expeditionary force. Zaka is a powerful warrior with good commandability. Of course, the biggest feature of Zaka to become the Legion commander is loyalty. Savior, is it your spaceship? What a huge spaceship. It is tens of thousands of meters long. Is this the human spaceship?" Zaka looked at the huge spaceship floating in the starry sky and took a breath of cold air. Oh my god. The spaceship is tens of thousands of meters long. It's so big. There are flashes of light everywhere. It's so dazzling. It's like a flying sun. The other Fiery Sun clan warriors were also shocked. In terms of technological level, the Fiery Sun clan is not even comparable to humans. In addition to the Holy Mountain spaceship, the Fiery Sun clan's meteorite spaceships are very small and can only accommodate a few people. They are equivalent to small starships of humans. The flying speed is also very slow. It even takes a year to fly from Wanshi Star to Azure Star. Haha. My Star Domain Arc is much more advanced than those space carriers. From now on, it will be your second home. Xia Xingchen said with a smile. Xia Xingchen and 10,000 Fiery Sun clan warriors flew to the vicinity of the Star Domain Arc. A large area of blue light spread out, directly teleporting them into the Star Domain Arc. Chapter 1227 Mecha Combat Power Rating System. The Star Domain Arc is 10,000 meters long and can carry at least 100,000 crew members. Originally, there were only the Blood Demon Group, the Bloody Mary Star Pirates, the Khan family mecha craftsmen, as well as the navigators, maintenance personnel, and ordinary crew members recruited on the Azure Star on the Star Domain Arc. There were less than 1,000 people at most. 99% of the cabins on the entire spacecraft were idle. 10,000 Fiery Sun expeditionary force boarded the ship, and Xia Xingchen opened up a separate area for them on the Star Domain Arc and separated them from the human crew members. The saying that those who are not of my race must have different hearts is not just a casual remark. There is a natural barrier between races, and it is almost impossible to eliminate it. Xia Xingchen did this to prevent friction between the Fiery Sun clan warriors and the original crew members, because of some trivial matters. After everything was arranged, Xia Xingchen immediately asked Kang Xiu to call the Kang family mecha craftsmen over and ask them about their recent analysis of the substance of energy crystals. With our current technology, it is temporarily impossible to analyze it. Kang Xiu answered very straightforwardly. Hey, I've thought of that, too. Xia Xingchen sighed. What about the Star Ark? Have you made any progress in analyzing the technology on the spacecraft? Very little progress. Kang Xiu said. The technology of the Star Ark is higher than that of the energy crystal. Whether it is the energy system, the weapon system, or the hyperspatial transmission system, we have gained nothing. The only breakthrough is in restoring the utilization rate of the spacecraft's optical brain. Now the Star Ark's onboard optical brain has restored 3% of its utilization rate. The automatic cruise system, the starry sky positioning system, and the precise jump system can all work normally. 3%, that's pretty good. Xia Xingchen was not stingy with his praise. If the Star Ark's optical brain is fully powered, it must be the most advanced electronic computer in the world, and its computing speed can even be comparable to that of Carlos, who has become a quasi-celestial being. 3% utilization rate is indeed a big breakthrough. In addition, we have another huge breakthrough. With the help of Xia, we have restored and manufactured the Mecha combat power rating system. Kang Xiu said excitedly, waving his hands. Oh. Xia Xingchen raised his eyebrows. What is the function of this system? You are a master of mecha making. You should know very well that human mechas are of various types, plus private modifications, and equipped with various peripherals, so it is difficult to evaluate their combat effectiveness. D-level, C-level, and even B-level mecha masters drive standard mechas produced on the assembly lines of major military industrial enterprises. They can still use parameters such as strength, agility, and speed to measure performance. However, for mecha masters above level A, most of them customize their mechas, and the parameters of the mechas become decorations. There is no unified measurement standard. Kang Xiu explained. Indeed. Xia Xingchen nodded, thinking, this problem has been bothering me. Even if a customized mecha has performance parameters, it is actually only of reference value. The installation of mental paint can double the performance parameters of the entire mecha. Not to mention the bonus of the mecha master's own supernatural powers to the mecha. Numerical parameters have become a decoration. For example, Michael's Angel of Light, who can tell the specific parameters of this mecha. For example, my Suzuki mecha, the parameters are also unknown, and can only be measured through actual combat. However, there are too many variables in actual combat. This mecha combat power rating system was created to deal with this situation. As long as the mecha drawings are imported, the Star Domain Ark's shipboard optical computer will perform combat simulations in the virtual space, and through thousands or even tens of thousands of simulated battles, it will give a fair specific combat power rating for the mecha. Of course, this rating is a numerical value, and can only be used for reference. In the end, it must be based on actual combat. Kang Xiu said excitedly, I can't fully express the power of this mecha rating system in words. Let me show you. Yeah. Xia Xingchen nodded. Kang Xiu waved his hand, and a holographic screen appeared above his head. A white mass-produced Space Knight mecha appeared on the screen. This is the Space Knight mecha. Everyone is familiar with it. Now, start calculating the combat rating. Kang Xiu imported the drawings of the Space Knight on a terminal. Space Knight mecha, combat rating DD. The screen flashed, and the rating appeared, and was broadcasted through the radio. The rating system still continues to use the rating system of the Mecha Master, which is divided into 6 levels, D, C, B, A, S, and Legend. However, for refinement, each level is divided into 3 grades. The Space Knight is the second grade of D level, which is the DD rating. Kang Xiu explained. Well, the Space Knight is very versatile, but the performance is average. Some senior C-level mecha masters still like to drive the Space Knight. However, if we only talk about the mecha parameters, the DD rating is very suitable. Xia Xingchen nodded slightly, and was more interested in this rating system. He really wanted to know what the specific ratings of his Kinglang mecha and Suzuki mecha were. Next, the Doomsday Catastrophe mecha without the God's Gold armor. Xia Xingchen said. The Doomsday Catastrophe Mech. The combat power rating is CC. So high. Xia Xingchen was stunned. This result was beyond his expectations. Xia Xingchen was very familiar with the performance of the Doomsday Catastrophe Mech. Judging from the performance index alone, the Doomsday Catastrophe Mech is not much different from the Space Knight. But, the combat power rating is actually one level lower. I was also surprised at this result at first. Kang Xiu said, but I investigated the actual combat examples of the Doomsday Catastrophe. In many wars, it performed extremely well, far exceeding the Space Knight. This is because there is a deviation between the parameters of the mech and the actual combat power. I think the system rating should be used as the standard. After all, this is an objective conclusion drawn after many simulated actual combats. Indeed, if it weren't for the Doomsday Catastrophe mech, Siberia would have probably been captured. It was this mech with seemingly insignificant performance that changed the entire war situation. Xia Xingchen pondered for a while and agreed with Kang Xiu's point of view. The next mecha to be reviewed is my Revenge Knight mecha. Xia Xingchen was full of confidence and imported the drawings of the Revenge Knight into the system. The Revenge Knight mecha was designed by Xia Xingchen himself. For Xia Xingchen at that time, it could be regarded as his pinnacle. However, from Xia Xingchen's current perspective, there are still many areas for improvement in the Revenge Knight. As he grows older and has more experience, Xia Xingchen's vision has become broader, and he thinks more and sees farther. Revenge Knight mecha, rated B. The optical brain quickly gave a conclusion. Only B. Xia Xingchen blushed slightly. Alas, after all, it is a work from my youth, and the strength is so. There is no way. Sir, it is not easy for you to design a mecha with a rating of B at that age. The mechas I have designed so far cannot exceed the 3C rating. Kang Xiu said in astonishment. Chapter 12:28 Planetary and Nebula Level. Designing a mecha is by no means an easy task. In addition to the need for systematic learning and mastering a lot of knowledge, the most important thing is inspiration. A mediocre mecha designer, no matter how much time he spends, even if he designs a mecha in his lifetime, will only design mediocre mechas. However, some genius mecha designers, although very young, can have a flash of inspiration and design mechas with superior performance. Of course, even for genius mecha designers, it is almost impossible to break through themselves and design mechas that exceed B rating when they are young. The reason is very simple: limited by age, too narrow vision, and too little experience. Well, the works when I was young were like this, a little immature. However, it is still a good memory. Xia Xingchen closed his eyes and recalled the excitement he felt when he first drove the Revenge Knight. He would never forget it in his life. Next, Xianheng mecha. Xia Xingchen thought about it and imported the drawings of Xianheng mecha. The designers of Xianheng mecha are Zhuo Leheng and Hao Xian, two recognized masters of mecha design, and they carefully designed the mecha with some of Xia Xingchen's wonderful ideas. The biggest feature of this mecha is that it can be equipped with paint. At that time, Xia Xingchen was only equipped with an enhanced paint and his combat power sword. He could face a group of 100 or even 1000 pirates alone. It was also with the high performance support of the Xianheng mecha that Xia Xingchen was able to kill into Xianyuan Star alone and rescue the Star Princess Qinjana from the execution ground. Unfortunately, this mecha with extremely excellent performance was destroyed by the Light Angel Michael in one blow, and it didn't even have the ability to resist. At that time, Xia Xingchen's strength was far behind Michael. The performance of the mecha was also very different. Xianheng mecha, rated AAA. The optical brain immediately gave a rating. 3A rating. Kang Xiu and a group of mecha craftsmen took a breath. It was the first time they had seen such a highly rated mecha. Teachers Zhuo Leheng and Hao Xian are indeed the leading figures in the mecha world. The mecha they designed and manufactured together is indeed powerful. It can be said that it is the limit of human technology today. Xia Xingchen was excited. Next, it's time for the highlight. Xia Xingchen smiled and took out the Qinglang mecha from the portable space, parked it on the table in front of the system, and scanned it directly. In addition to importing drawings, the optical computer can also scan the mecha directly. Moreover, the rating obtained by scanning the mecha is more accurate. What rating will the Qinglang Mecha be? I'm so curious. If the Xianheng Mecha represents the limit of human technology, the Qinglang Mecha should surpass human technology. Buzz buzz buzz. This time the optical computer did not give an answer immediately, but roared for a full 50 seconds before a line of words appeared on the screen. Qinglang Mecha, rated legend, planetary level. Planetary level? Kang Xiu was stunned. I only entered 6 ratings, A, B, C, D, S and legend. The highest is legend. What does planetary level mean? The other mecha craftsmen were also confused. Some of them had already come up to debug on the terminal, thinking that there was a problem with the system. No need to debug. No problem. Xia Xingchen looked at the line of words on the screen, was silent for a while, and said loudly, "Then why did this inexplicable rating appear?" Kang Xiu looked confused. "This mecha combat power rating system is the blueprint you got from Jia?" Xia Xingchen asked. "Yes. The original blueprint was provided by Jia, and we debugged and improved it." Kang Xiu said. "That's right. This planetary level is the original rating of this system." Xia Xingchen said confidently, "Master told me that there are 9 levels of legendary level, called the legendary 9 realms. The first 3 realms are nebula level, planetary level, and star level. In other words, the combat power rating of the Azure Dragon Mecha is the second legendary level." "I see." After Xia Xingchen's explanation, Kang Xiu and others suddenly realized the Azure Dragon Mecha directly skipped the S level and became a legendary mecha. However, the original Azure Dragon Mecha should only be S level. Otherwise, I can't drive it with my A level strength. Xia Xingchen speculated silently. When the Azure Dragon Mecha was first manufactured, its performance was not as strong as it is now. Later, Xia Xingchen equipped the Qinglang Mecha with enhanced coating, star-swallowing armor, Heart of Thunder, Wings of the Sky, magnetic underwater propulsion, small jump engine for mecha, and the magnetic weapon system. The Qinglang Mecha became perfect step by step, and became a super mecha with extremely comprehensive performance. Except for the slightly weaker attack surface, other aspects are extremely superior. If all the accessories carried by the Qinglang Mecha are removed, the rating of the Qinglang Mecha should only be S, at most SS level mecha. Mecha can be optimized and improved. Xia Xingchen has devoted a lot of effort to the Qinglang Mecha. At the same time, he has also received corresponding rewards. It is precisely because of the super performance of the Qinglang Mecha that Xia Xingchen is only an S-level mecha master, and he is not inferior to the legendary mecha master in the fight. The reason is very simple. Legendary mecha masters are rare. However, legendary mechas are even rarer. Many legendary mecha masters may only drive S-level mechas, and poorer mecha masters can only drive A-level mechas. If the performance of the mecha is not good, no matter how strong the mecha master is, the combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced. It is precisely for this reason that the status of mecha designers is so high, and they are sought after by many major forces. Xia Xingchen is quite satisfied with the combat power rating of the Azure Dragon Mecha. Next, it's the Suzuki Mecha. I haven't fully understood the performance of this mecha. Let's see if it can surpass the Azure Dragon Mecha. Xia Xingchen was looking forward to it. He personally drove the 20-meter high Suzuki Mecha and walked to the scanner. ZHI. The scanner shot out a laser, scanning and analyzing the Suzuki Mecha. Everyone held their breath and waited for the rating result of the Suzuki Mecha. They were all very curious and full of expectations, hoping that the performance of the Suzuki Mecha could surpass the Azure Dragon Mecha. After all, the manufacturing materials of the Suzuki Mecha are much more difficult to obtain than those of the Azure Dragon Mecha. The optical computer took longer to analyze the Suzuki Mecha than the Azure Dragon Mecha, more than 3 minutes. Ding. Finally, the words appeared on the screen: Suzuki Mecha, rated as legendary nebula level. Ah. What's going on? The rating of the Suzuki Mecha is actually lower than that of the Azure Dragon Mecha? Impossible. Logically speaking, the Suzuki Mecha should be higher than the Azure Dragon Mecha. Nebula level, a level above legendary. A level difference is a huge difference. Xia Xingchen stood up at once. He was also very surprised by this result. The Suzuki Mecha is actually one level weaker than the Azure Dragon Mecha. Chapter 12:29 Suzuki Mecha Evolution. With the combat power displayed by the Suzuki Mecha now, it can be said that it completely crushes the Azure Dragon Mecha. However, the rating given by this mecha combat power rating system is actually one level lower than the Azure Dragon Mecha. Xia Xingchen was a little confused. The Suzuki Mecha uses energy crystals, which have extremely high technological content. Our technology cannot even analyze it, but the rating of the mecha is one level lower. It should be that the rating system is not perfect yet. There are some deviations, and it needs to be debugged. Well, let's debug it after collecting more information. After all, it is a program. There will always be bugs. The mecha craftsmen of the Kang family were also very surprised to see this result, and they discussed it in a low voice. As a result of the discussion, most of the mecha craftsmen believed that the rating system may be flawed and unstable, and there was an error in measuring the rating of the Suzaku. Well, my idea is different from yours. Xia Xingchen touched his chin with his right hand, thought for a while, and spoke. My Lord Marquis, what do you think? The Khan family craftsmen immediately stopped discussing and focused their eyes on Xia Xingchen. Among all the people present, only Xia Xingchen has the title of master, and he is the mecha master of Azure Dragon Mecha and Suzuki Mecha. No matter from which angle, Xia Xingchen has the most say. I think the result of the rating system is correct. Suzuki Mecha is indeed Nebula level, one level lower than the planetary level of Azure Dragon Mecha. Xia Xingchen spoke slowly. Sir, do you mean that from your personal experience of driving a mecha, Suzuki Mecha is not as good as Azure Dragon Mecha? Kang Xiu rushed to ask. No. The performance of Suzuki Mecha is all round crushing Azure Dragon Mecha. Xia Xingchen shook his head. The mecha craftsman didn't understand. On the one hand, Xia Xingchen said that the rating system was correct. On the other hand, he said that the performance of Suzuki Mecha is better than that of Azure Dragon Mecha. Isn't this a contradiction? After my gradual improvement, the Azure Dragon Mecha has become a special mech that is both offensive and defensive, and has the ability to run long distances. It has the Heart of Thunder, which is truly infinite energy, and can fight in any environment, which is something the Suzuki Mech cannot compare to. Xia Xingchen explained. The Suzuki Mech's solar furnace is pseudo-infinite energy, and can only have sufficient endurance under the illumination of starlight. From the perspective of adaptability, it is not as good as the Azure Dragon Mech. Secondly, and most importantly, the Suzuki Mech has only two means of defense. One is to rely on its high speed to avoid attacks, and the other is energization. It can even be said that energization is the only means of defense for the Suzuki Mech. However, the energized state, although invincible against physical attacks, can be hit by energy attacks such as laser beams. Once hit, the Suzuki Mech will be damaged, and it is impossible for it to rely on the star-devouring armor to repair itself like the Azure Dragon Mech. That is to say, although the Suzuki Mecha looks powerful, it is a mecha with obvious advantages and disadvantages. The Azure Dragon Mecha, on the other hand, has both offensive and defensive capabilities and almost no disadvantages. Therefore, the rating system gives the Azure Dragon Mecha a rating one level higher than the Suzuki Mecha. Xia Xingchen concluded. I see. Now that you have explained it, we understand. So it seems that the Suzuki Mecha is still inferior to the Azure Dragon Mecha. Your Excellency has spent so much energy, and the Suzuki Mecha you got is not as good as the previous one. It's really useless. The mecha craftsman nodded, agreeing with Xia Xingchen's opinion. Useless? The Suzuki Mecha is not useless. Xia Xingchen laughed and retorted. When the Azure Dragon Mecha was first made, it didn't have so many peripherals, and its rating might only be S level. The Suzuki Mecha was still in its bare metal state, but it was rated as a legendary Nebula level. The Azure Dragon Mecha doesn't have much potential to be tapped, but the Suzuki Mecha still has great potential. Of course, the most important thing is that the bare metal of the Suzuki Mecha is not in its complete form. The Suzuki Mecha is not in its complete form. All the mecha craftsmen were stunned. That's right. I only used 5 energy crystals to make the Suzuki Mecha. However, if I want to make the Suzuki Mecha complete, I need 5 more. Xia Xingchen smiled slightly, waved his hand, and 5 huge energy crystals appeared in the center of the cabin, emitting dazzling light. Fortunately, I'm lucky. I got 5 energy crystals from Wanshi Star. Perhaps these are the last 5 energy crystals in the Milky Way. Hiss. The whole audience suddenly gasped. Great. I can find 5 more energy crystals. I can see the complete form of the Suzuki Mecha and die with no regrets. Ha ha ha. Yes. Lord Marquis, what are you waiting for? Let the Suzuki Mecha evolve again immediately. We can't wait. Hurry up. The mecha craftsmen of the Kang family are all technology enthusiasts and the most enthusiastic mecha enthusiasts. When they heard that they could see the complete form of the Suzuki Mecha, they were all ecstatic. For a while, some people ignored the difference between the noble and the humble and urged loudly. Haha, I can't wait any longer. Xia Xingchen smiled brightly. In fact, he was the one who was looking forward to it the most. Xia Xingchen jumped and flew 20 meters high. He entered the interior of the Suzuki Mecha and directly turned on the energy state. The mecha turned into an energy light body condensed by white light. The huge palm was placed on the energy crystal. Swish. The white light in the energy crystal poured into the interior of the Suzuki Mecha, making the body of the mecha even more dazzling. In the blink of an eye, one energy crystal was completely absorbed and turned into an ordinary transparent crystal. With a light touch, it turned into countless small cubic powders. Then the second piece, the third piece, the fourth piece, the fifth piece. It took 30 minutes to absorb all 5 energy crystals. The appearance of the Suzuki Mecha did not change much, but in the energy body state, the light was more dazzling, and the eyes could not look directly at it, as if it was a sun. Finally absorbed, Xia Xingchen exited the energized state and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Maintaining this state for a long time consumes a lot of mental energy. Even Xia Xingchen was a little overwhelmed. The time is just right. Xia Xingchen grinned, full of joy. He couldn't wait to see what changes the Suzuki Mecha had. Ah, this mecha. It's on fire. It's covered with a layer of black flames. This is not an illusion. It's so hot. The flames feel dangerous. The mecha craftsmen of the Kang family looked at the Suzuki Mecha that had evolved into a complete state with shocked eyes. Compared with the past, the Suzuki Mecha has undergone a very obvious change. A layer of black fire is burning on the outer shell of the mecha, like a layer of flame armor. Direct evaluation. Xia Xingchen drove the Suzuki Mecha and stood in front of the scanner. A moment later, Suzuki Mecha rated legendary planetary level. A cold electronic voice sounded. Chapter 1230 Racial Conflict. Evolution succeeded. From nebula level to planetary level. Upgraded by a whole level. Suzuki Mecha is on the same level as Azure Dragon Mecha. It's incredible. The mecha craftsmen were all amazed. Xia Xingchen was very satisfied with this result. You know, Suzuki Mecha is an extreme mecha with obvious disadvantages and advantages. In the best state, it can be on the same level as Azure Dragon Mecha. It is conceivable that the attack surface of Suzuki Mecha alone is much stronger than Azure Dragon Mecha. Of course, Azure Dragon Mecha has too wide applicability. This is something that Suzuki Mecha cannot replace. Well, Suzuki Mecha still has great potential to be tapped. But don't rush. Should we look for opportunities? Xia Xingchen nodded. The human mecha rating system has always been very chaotic. There is no standard to measure which mecha is strong and which is weak. It is precisely because of this that some people who seek fame and reputation have the possibility of passing off fakes as real ones. Maybe I should promote this rating system. Xia Xingchen had a bold idea in his mind. He wanted time, so he went back to his room to think carefully. Kang Xiu, I'll leave this to you. Debug and optimize this rating system to make it more perfect. I'll be very useful in the future. Before leaving, Xia Xingchen patted Kang Xiu on the shoulder and told him, well, sir, don't worry, I will complete it as soon as possible. Kang Xiu was entrusted with an important task. His expression was excited and full of energy. Come on. Xia Xingchen left and returned to the captain's room, meditating while thinking about the possibility of promoting the mecha rating system. The star domain arc flew in the starry sky, flashed by, and entered the chaos star domain. It was still 2 days away from the Azure star. Xia Xingchen thought for a day, and he already had some ideas in his mind. He got up and went to the cafeteria of the star domain arc to have lunch. Ah, Lord Marquis, you are here in person? What do you need? I'll arrange for someone to deliver it to your room. A tall female officer saw Xia Xingchen entering the cafeteria and said hurriedly. Xia Xingchen was busy with official duties and rarely walked around the star domain arc. This was his first time in the cafeteria. Usually, someone would deliver food to the captain's room. It's okay. I haven't eaten in the cafeteria with the soldiers for a long time. I miss it. Xia Xingchen smiled, took the plate from the shelf next to him, and stood at the end of the line to wait for lunch. Ah, Marquis. You're here? You go first. You stand in front. It was lunchtime at this moment. The crew lined up in a long line, waiting to receive lunch. When they saw Xia Xingchen coming, they made way and let him go to the front. No need. I'll just line up slowly. Xia Xingchen smiled, waved his hand, and rejected everyone's kindness. Even if he is the captain, it doesn't mean he can do whatever he wants. Some rules must be followed by everyone. This has nothing to do with status, but only with personal cultivation. The line was shortened quickly. Xia Xingchen arrived first and ordered a set meal in front of the self-service ordering machine. Soon, a steaming bowl of rice and 3 side dishes, 1 meat dish and 2 vegetable dishes, appeared on the plate. The food is good. Xia Xingchen was slightly startled. He turned around and saw that everyone had the same food. He was not treated specially. He took the plate and walked to a secluded corner to enjoy it slowly. It's really good. Xia Xingchen took a bite of the food, and it tasted good. The rice grains were soft and glutinous, with a good taste and a fragrance. The meat dish was braised steak, with overflowing soup. When he took a bite, his mouth was full of oil. The taste was even comparable to large restaurants on the planet. The technology of the star domain arc is really incredible. Xia Xingchen couldn't help but sigh. When he was in the army, there was only a large bowl of mashed potatoes in the canteen, and he had to look at the face of the aunt who served the food. If he offended the aunt, he couldn't even eat mashed potatoes, and had to starve. But, even if the space of the star domain arc is large enough, there is not enough space to store fresh food. Xia Xingchen was curious and silently used the omniscience field. After careful investigation, he suddenly realized. It turned out that these rice and steaks were not real rice and steaks, but synthetic food. Synthetic food is very common. When Xia Xingchen was a soldier, if he was fighting outside, he could not even eat mashed potatoes in the cafeteria. He could only carry a tube like toothpaste with him. Inside was synthetic food like snot. Although it contained various nutrients needed by the human body, it tasted like paste and was terrible. The synthetic food in the cafeteria of the star domain arc was able to realistically simulate the taste of food and contained rich nutrients. Technology is reflected in subtle places and quietly changes people's lives. At this time, a noise broke out in the cafeteria. Sorry, this place is not open to you. Please leave immediately. A voice said in a rough voice. Why don't you open it to us? You humans are the soldiers of the Marquis, and so are we, the Fiery Sun Clan. Moreover, we, the Fiery Sun Clan, are more loyal and more powerful than you humans. A voice replied without showing any weakness. What? You, the Fiery Sun Clan, are more powerful than us? Say it again if you dare. Many human crew members stood up and surrounded them. Several tall Fiery Sun Clan soldiers were surrounded in the middle, with proud expressions on their faces, clenched fists, and said in a cold voice, say it once. We, the Fiery Sun Clan, are stronger than you humans. Of course, except for the Marquis. He is different, he is a savior. And you, are too weak, not worthy of being compared with him. Humph, the Fiery Sun Clan. I have tolerated you for a long time. Do you think you can fight, just because you are big? Come on, let's have a competition. Xia happened to bring a group of space pirates into the cafeteria at this time. When he heard this, he immediately surrounded them, with fighting intent burning in his eyes. Human. I'm Zaka, the commander of the Liang Expeditionary Force. I'm not convinced by you humans either. It's just right. Let's take this opportunity to compete. Let's see who is better. A bald-headed Liang man came over with a team of tall Liang warriors, his eyes defiant. Okay. Let's meet at the fighting arena on the spaceship. Let's all sign a life and death agreement. If anyone is killed in the fighting arena, it's their own fault. Xia said immediately. Okay. We Liang will never lose. Zaka also nodded easily. The two were about to clap their hands and swear an oath when a loud shout came. Teaching, Xia. Ah. Lord Marquis. Lord Savior. The two turned their heads at the same time and saw Xia Xingchen coming over with a cold face. Their faces suddenly changed and they knelt down to salute. Teaching, what is the 7th article of the military order? Xia Xingchen shouted. No private fighting is allowed in the army. Teaching trembled. Then what were you doing just now? Xia Xingchen said coldly. Sir, I know I was wrong. Please punish me according to military law. Tai Xiang has been with Xia Xingchen for a long time and knows his character very well. He knows that he will not tolerate any sand in his eyes. Humph, forget about military law. Go back and copy the military regulations 100 times. If you make a mistake in one word, you have to copy it 10 times again. Xia Xingchen snorted coldly and did not punish Tai Xiang severely. Ah. The Marquis has always been strict in military discipline. Why is he so merciful today? The onlookers were surprised and whispered. Chapter 1231 Raid on the Laboratory. Tai Xiang, I'm punishing you like this. Are you still not convinced? Xia Xingchen looked at Tai Xiang with a smile on his face. Sir, how dare I not be convinced? Tai Xiang said hurriedly. Tell the truth. Xia Xingchen's tone suddenly became tough. Sir. Tai Xiang knew that he couldn't hide it from Xia Xingchen, so he lowered his head and whispered, I'm indeed a little unconvinced in my heart. However, I'm not unconvinced by your orders. It's that I'm unconvinced by the people of the Liang clan. I believe that most people present have the same thoughts as me. They, the Liang clan, have some talents, but don't forget, the real overlord of the galaxy is us humans. We have mechas, we have starships, we have the will to be brave and unyielding. We can't lose to the Liang clan. Tai Xiang's words moved the people around him. The reason why Tai Xiang wanted to fight Xia was not because of emotion, but for the dignity of mankind. Xia, what about you? Xia Xingchen looked at Xia. I don't accept it either. Sir, please allow me to fight this mecha master named Teaching. After we boarded the Star Domain Arc, we were looked down upon by other humans everywhere. They looked down on our Liang clan. They are all bullying us by taking advantage of your majesty. I want to fight on behalf of the Liang clan and let these short-sighted humans know that everyone in the Liang clan is a strong and loyal warrior. Xia said word by word in a deep voice. I knew it. Xia Xingchen sighed. Teaching fought for the dignity of mankind, and Xia fought for the dignity of the Liang clan. Both of them fought for dignity. However, Xia Xingchen understood that behind dignity was the distrust between races. To sum it up in one sentence, it is still the old saying, those who are not of my race must have different hearts. It is extremely difficult to make two completely different races understand and respect each other. You two want to fight? Xia Xingchen asked. Yes. Please approve it, sir. Please help me, sir. Teaching and Xia both nodded quickly. This is my Star Domain Arc. I'm the supreme commander of the spaceship. And you are all my soldiers. If soldiers dare to fight privately, no matter who it is, they will be immediately punished by military law. Xia Xingchen shouted sternly, you want to fight privately, and you also want my approval? Do you want to make trouble? I dare not. I know I was wrong. Teaching and Xia were shocked, and knelt down to admit their mistakes. Humph, it's good to know your mistakes. Private fighting is impossible. But I can understand the two of you wanting to compete. Xia Xingchen snorted coldly, and his face softened. There are many ways to compete. Private fighting is the stupidest one. I have a suggestion. Swish. Xia Xingchen waved his hand and used the captain's authority. Immediately, the light brain of the Star Domain Arc sensed that a holographic screen appeared in front of him, on which a yellowish-brown planet was rotating. This planet is called Planet Rutenforth. I got the news from Edward that there is a heavy force of mutants stationed on the planet, and even Edward and the Jackdaw Star Pirates can't do anything about it. Judging from the number of troops, it is speculated that there is a laboratory for creating mutants on this planet. The Star Arc just happened to pass through the starfield near Planet Rutenforth, and I plan to destroy the laboratory. Xia Xingchen said slowly. Sir, what do you mean? Teaching immediately understood. A smile bloomed on his face, and he was ready to fight. Great. Xia, do you two want to sign a military order and compete to see who can kill more enemies? Let's compete. Am I afraid of you? Zaka snorted coldly, but it's not the two of us who are competing. It's our Liang clan and you humans. Do you dare? I couldn't ask for it. Xingchen immediately agreed. Okay. You two go down and order your men to prepare immediately. 3 hours later, we will raid planet Rutan 4th. I want to uproot the secret laboratory on this planet. Xia Xingchen said in a deep voice. Yes, sir. Everyone present, whether human or fiery sun, was excited at the moment, clenched their fists, and gathered their strength, ready to fight in 3 hours. With just a few words, they can turn internal conflicts into external conflicts. It's really clever. Li Huamui saw this scene in the passage, and sighed in a low voice. 3 hours later, the fiery sun and human mecha divisions were ready. The fiery sun sent out 1,000 soldiers, led by the Legion commander Zaka himself. The human mecha division also sent out 1,000 mecha divisions, led by Tai Xiang. On the human side, except for the Blood Demon group, almost all the mecha divisions were ready to participate in the battle, and all the members gathered in the hall in front of the bridge. Xia Xingchen, wearing a neat black Imperial General uniform and a military cap, appeared in front of the hall, looked up at the desolate Earth yellow planet outside the porthole, and said coldly, Fiery Sun Expeditionary Force, New Bloody Mary Group, target Rutan number 4 planet. Let's go. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All the soldiers present stood at attention, and saluted at the same time, shouting loudly. Swoosh. The humans drove the mecha, and the Liang clan condensed the rock armor, and walked towards the teleporter. In the blink of an eye, they were teleported to the starry sky outside the star domain arc. 2,000 warriors attacked the planet Rutan 4th. Sir, who do you think will win? Li Huamui, who was wearing a white school officer skirt and white boots on her slender legs, looked even more heroic and sexy. She lowered her head and asked, is there any need to ask? Of course it's us. Xia Xingchen smiled. Of course we will win. I mean the bet between Xingchen and Zaka. Who do you think will win? Li Huamui explained. Xingchen shouldn't bet with Zaka. Xia Xingchen shook his head and said seriously, Xingchen can't win. Why? Li Huamui was stunned. Tai Xiang is too arrogant after all. The warriors of the Liang tribe are very powerful, and each of them can fight 10 people at once. Tai Xiang brought 1,000 people, and Zaka also brought 1,000 people. It seems fair, but it is not fair at all. Xia Xingchen explained. Let him suffer a little, and I hope he can learn to face the gap between himself and others. I see. Li Huamui was amazed. If Xia Xingchen's words were not exaggerated, and each Liang tribe warrior could fight 10 people at once, then the 10,000 Liang expeditionary forces on the star domain arc should be regarded as 100,000 people, 100,000 combat power. The standard configuration of a space aircraft carrier is also 100,000 people. Jaya, turn on the distant observation equipment. I want to see the battle process on the planet. Xia Xingchen ordered. Understood. A few seconds later, Jaya transferred the picture on the screen. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 2,000 warriors are passing through the atmosphere, drawing 2,000 brilliant light traces in the sky, like a falling meteor shower. The first battle of the Fiery Sun Expeditionary Force. Perform well. Xia Xingchen took a deep breath, leaned back in his chair, his eyes shining, his heart full of anticipation. Chapter 1232. Too many wolves, little meat. Rutan Star. Under the desolate desert, there is a huge laboratory. In the core area of the laboratory, thousands of cylindrical culture tanks are lined up, and all kinds of mutant human bodies are soaked in the green liquid in the culture tanks. Some have scales all over their bodies like snakes, some have crocodile heads, and some have bat wings behind them. These mutant human bodies have been injected with ascension potions to produce genetically mutated humans. The survival rate of these people is only 1%. The mutation process is very painful. One by one, they open their mouths wide, and the green liquid gurgles into their mouths, making silent cries. A bunch of trash. The quality of this batch of star pirates is too poor. It is estimated that only 1 or 200 people can mutate successfully. A rat man wearing a white coat and black framed glasses walked past the culture tank, holding a bottle of wine in his hand, drinking while walking, and burping while talking. Drive Kangaya, drinking in broad daylight. A dog-headed mutant came over. He was wearing the uniform of the chief guard and showed dissatisfaction on his face. "Oh, it's the guard leader, Kundang. There's no entertainment on this godforsaken planet. What else can we do if we don't drink?" said the rat man. Dr. Kang yapped, adjusting his glasses. "That's right." Kundang nodded. "I really envy you people who have high IQs and can do scientific research. I have to be busy with the defense of the planet all day long. I don't even have time to drink. What is there to be busy about? Didn't we just beat back Edward's mecha army a few days ago? Even Edward can't do anything to us. Who can do anything to us in the entire chaotic starfield?" Dr. Kanya smiled and said, "Let's go. I'll buy you a drink. Anyway, the days of you and me, one day of happiness is one day less. Doctor, you go first. I'll be there soon." As Kundang was talking, a shrill alarm suddenly sounded in the underground research institute. "Something's going on." The dog-headed man Kundang frowned and immediately returned to the monitoring room. "What's going on?" Kundang asked several mutants in charge of investigation. "There are enemies. They have already invaded the atmosphere. They are unknown, and there are about 2,000 of them," a mutant said hurriedly. "Only 2,000 people dared to invade the planet Rutan 4th, that I was responsible for defending? They are courting death." Quinton sneered and immediately went back to drive the mecha, leading his men to fight. Swish. Quinton drove a Desert Reaper mecha, took the lead, and launched from a mecha ejection port hidden in the sand dunes to the ground. He was turning on the radar, preparing to search for the enemy and give this 2,000-man mecha army a head-on blow. Boom. A huge stone hammer with a red body and flowing magma flashed a dazzling red light and fell from the air. Ah! Quinton's face suddenly changed. He didn't realize, when the enemy came to him, there was only the terrifying huge stone hammer in his vision. He couldn't move at all, as if the sky had fallen. He felt terrible pressure and had no confidence to resist at all. "I don't want to die." Kundang roared. The engine power was fully turned on. The mecha turned black. The body suddenly increased from 10 meters to 20 meters, and the dark light shone on his hands, and he blasted the stone hammer. He tried his best. Boom. The two collided in an instant, and a violent explosion occurred. The mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the entire sand dune was razed to the ground. The Desert Reaper mecha exploded, and the guard leader Kundang became the first casualty. The first one. Teaching, I got it first. Zaka was wearing a 50-meter high rock armor, holding a lava stone hammer in his hand, and roared excitedly. "Just an unlucky soldier. You are lucky." Teaching snorted coldly. "Humph, what's wrong with a soldier? Okay, I'll rush into the underground research institute and smash their commander into a pulp." Zaka snorted coldly, and the stone hammer hit the ground heavily, immediately smashing a big hole in the ground, and the dome of the underground research institute was pierced and exposed. "I can't let you get ahead again this time." Teaching took advantage of the smaller size of the mecha, and jumped into the passage leading to the underground research institute first. "Shameless. This is a passage I found." Zaka didn't have time to curse a few words. Seeing that Teaching had already flown far away in the mecha, he quickly jumped down. The two didn't know that Quinton, the highest commander on the planet Rutan 4th, had died in the first battle. Explosions continued to sound over the desert, and battles in other directions had also begun. However, the situation of the war was one-sided. It's not so much that the mutant guards had no power to fight. It's better to say that the soldiers of the Liang Expeditionary Force and the New Bloody Mary Regiment were like a group of hungry wolves. When they saw a mutant driving a mecha, they pounced on it like seeing fat meat. If they were a little slower, the enemy would be destroyed by others. Humans are not strong, but they move very fast. They are very good at grabbing heads. A Liang clan strongman was dissatisfied and complained in a low voice. "What are you complaining about? I've been watching all the time. If you want to blame someone, blame these mutants for being too few and too weak. Hey, there's one. Sorry, it's mine. Ha ha ha." A human mecha master laughed and started the thrusters at full power, flying towards a mutant mecha that just emerged from the desert. The mutant had never seen such a scene before, and was completely terrified. In an instant, the mecha was submerged by missiles like a torrential rain, and turned into ashes. This scene is constantly being played out on various planets. In outer space, the star Domainarch floats in the starry sky. It looks like Tai Xiang may not lose. Xia Xingchen shook his head and smiled bitterly. The Liang clan is still too honest. Although they are strong in combat, they are too slow in grabbing heads. Lord Edward knows that you are going to attack Rutenforth, so he sent a message. He said that the planet Rutenforth is a tough nut to crack, so you must not take it lightly. Li Huami stood aside, read the message just sent by Edward, looked at the battle on the screen, and said in surprise, but Lord Edward should not have expected that the current situation of the battle, it's a heavy win, no matter how you look at it. The enemy is too weak. It's not that the enemy is weak. It's that we are too strong. Xia Xingchen smiled and said, let's not talk about the new Bloody Mary regiment for now. This Liang Expeditionary Force is an army that I spent a lot of effort to get, and it is enough to pacify the entire chaotic starfield. How can it not be strong? That's right. Li Huami nodded and continued to watch the battle on the screen. After the ravages of the Fiery Sun clan and the human mecha masters, half of the underground laboratory has been reduced to ruins, with smoke and flames everywhere, and mecha wreckage, and broken human limbs scattered everywhere. Well, Xing, I have 2 tasks for you. Capture a researcher and a complete enemy mecha. Xia Xingchen saw the culture tank in the underground laboratory, frowned, and said to Xing through the communicator, yes, sir. Xing said immediately. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1233 Self-Destruction. Don't worry, boss. Even if I put aside the bet with Zaka, I will definitely do what you told me to do. Xing was driving the mecha, and was so excited that he laughed loudly. For a moment, he forgot to call Xia Xingchen chief and habitually called him chief. This Xing. Li Huami was a little jealous. You know, anyone can be a chief. As long as the rank is high, the people below will naturally call him chief. However, the title of chief is different. It is much more intimate, and has the meaning of recognition. In the past, Xing only called Li Huami chief for big sister. This shows that in Xing's heart, Xia Xingchen and Li Huami are already in the same position. On the planet Rutenforth, the one-sided battle continues. Under the leadership of Zaka and Xing, all the soldiers of the Liang Expeditionary Force and the new Bloody Mary group turned into hungry wolves and frantically attacked the Underground Research Institute after the fermentation of the bet between the two. The number of mutant defenders in the Underground Research Institute exceeded 10,000, and there were 8,000 elite mecha divisions alone. However, they were beaten to pieces by only 2,000 people, and fled in panic. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Rutenforth was bound to fall. In a secret room at the bottom of the Underground Research Institute, a lizard mutant with a rat-like face quietly took out the superwave communicator and sent a signal to the starry sky with an anxious face. At the edge of the chaotic starfield, a huge palace was being built underground on a seemingly inconspicuous and desolate planet. Thousands of humans and mutants were working hard, some driving engineering mechas, some using engineering mechanical arms, and some even using the most primitive hammers and chisels, moving giant stones to build a huge palace for the god's messenger. In the completed part of the palace, the god's messenger was drinking and having fun with the end, holding a fine wine in his hand, watching a group of beautiful dancers dancing enchantingly in front of him. And, thanks to you, I can make a comeback. Come on, I'll toast you. From now on, we both serve the god of machinery and we are colleagues. The ugly snake face of the god's messenger was covered with an ugly smile, toasting the end. We are different after all. You serve the master, but I'm just the master's servant. The end laughed lightly, with thorns in his words. Although he always called himself a servant, he was obviously proud of his status as a servant. That's right, that's right. I will need you to help me say a few good words in front of the god of machinery in the future. The god's messenger hurriedly smiled, and he dared not treat the end with the same contempt as before. The technology of the god of machinery is really incredible. The large number of mechas it sent over are said to be mass-produced, but their performance is very terrifying. It is with these mechas plus my mutant mecha division, that we can defeat Edward's army and reverse the disadvantage in one fell swoop. The god's messenger laughed heartily. Of course. However, these mass-produced models are still inferior to my Teoti mecha. Alas, it's a pity that there is only one Teoti mecha left. Otherwise, the end side, feeling a little regretful. Let's not talk about this, brothers. Let's drink. The envoy toasted the end. Beep beep beep. At this moment, the super wave communicator on the envoy rang. Emergency distress signal from Rutan number 4. The envoy was stunned and quickly turned on the screen. My lord, it's bad. The enemy has invaded Rutan number 4. On the screen, a lizardman stuck out his long tongue and reported to the envoy with a panicked look on his face. What are you panicking about? The envoy said coldly, I have arranged so many mecha divisions for you, as well as the latest crimson mecha. If you still can't win, let Kundan come to see me with his head. My lord. Kundan has died in the battle. The lizardman said with a bitter face. Huh? Even Quinten died in the battle? Who are the enemies? Did Edward personally lead the Jackdaw Star pirates to kill us? Even if Edward personally attacked us, with your troops, you should be able to hold on. The envoy's face changed, and he took a breath of cold air. I don't know who the enemies are. Half of them are human mecha divisions, and the other half are from the Fiery Sun tribe. I don't know where so many Fiery Sun tribes came from, and their fighting power is more terrifying than each other. As soon as the guard leader Quinten showed his head, he was smashed flat by a Fiery Sun tribe warrior with a hammer. He didn't even have time to self-destruct. The lizard man said. The Fiery Sun tribe. When did I offend the Fiery Sun tribe? No. I have some friendship with Louis from the Fiery Sun tribe. The envoy was slightly startled, his eyes surprised. No. It's almost impossible for humans to mobilize the Fiery Sun tribe. There is only one person who can do such an incredible thing. Xia Xingchen. The envoy is very smart, and his sixth sense is very strong. He even noticed the truth without any evidence. It's bad. If Xia Xingchen raided Rutan 4th, it would be bad. The envoy suddenly became impatient, stood up, and moved around like an ant on a hot pot. Isn't it just a secret research institute? It was destroyed, so just rebuild it. The end was listening and interrupted. Of course, a research institute is nothing. The key is the information inside. If Xia Xingchen gets these information, it will be all over. The envoy frowned, and was silent for a long time. Finally, he made up his mind, slammed his fist heavily on the table, and shouted to the lizard man on the screen, Yes. I order you to immediately activate the self-destruct device of the Underground Research Institute. Destroy all research data. And, after activating the self-destruct device, immediately kill all senior researchers. Yas was stunned. Activating the self-destruct device meant that he would also be buried with it, so he hesitated. Yas. Obey my orders. The envoy's golden vertical pupils suddenly widened, flashing with dazzling brilliance. Yes, sir. Yas' eyes suddenly straightened, and he responded woodenly. It's okay to destroy the entire institute, but it would be a pity to kill all the senior researchers. The institute can be rebuilt, and it takes too much time to train a talent. The end of the face changed slightly, shocked by the decision of the envoy. There is no way. I'm also heartbroken. But, those data are too important. They can only be destroyed, and they can't fall into Xia Xingchen's hands. The envoy gritted his teeth, raised his head, and drank the wine in the glass, and threw the glass to the ground, breaking it into pieces. On the planet Rutan 4th, Yas turned off the super wave communicator and immediately returned to the hub center of the Underground Institute, and entered the self-destruction code on the keyboard. Ding, the self-destruction system has been activated, and the institute will explode in 10 minutes. All personnel please evacuate in time. Evacuate. All personnel please evacuate the institute within 10 minutes. Red lights flashed throughout the institute, and shrill alarms sounded everywhere. The cold electronic sound was counting down, notifying personnel to evacuate. Chapter 1234 Abandoned. The self-destruction program is activated. What's going on? Has the enemy invaded the core of the laboratory? Impossible. Even if the enemy enters the core, they can't know the self-destruction code. What's going on? Have we been abandoned by the people above? The underground laboratory is huge and divided into many areas. Some areas have been captured, but in most areas, the mutant mecha masters are still fighting hard. After hearing the self-destruction alarm, all the mutants were stunned and stopped attacking. It self-destructed before we even got in? These bastards actually played self-destruction. This is the end, and we haven't killed a few people yet. The bet is probably going to be voided. The Sun Clan warriors and human mecha masters were also stunned at this moment. For a moment, the battle that was originally in a white-hot situation suddenly died down. Run. Run. The laboratory is going to self-destruct. We must escape to 100 kilometers away within 10 minutes. Run. Everyone, stop fighting. Run away if you want to live. The mutants shouted and drove their mechas to the outside of the institute desperately. They didn't want to die on this desolate planet. In contrast, the Sun Clan and the human mecha divisions were much more orderly. Although some people looked panicked, they all stayed in their positions and waited for orders from their superiors. My Lord Marquis, it's bad. The self-destruction program in the institute has been activated. It will explode in 10 minutes. Xia immediately contacted Xia Xingchen and asked for new instructions. Retreat. Xia Xingchen didn't think much, waved his hand, and shouted, "We must ensure the safety of our soldiers. Evacuate immediately." "Yes, sir." Xia turned off the communicator and immediately conveyed Xia Xingchen's order to let the soldiers evacuate from the institute. However, after completing all this, Xia looked at the time. There were still 3 minutes left. He made up his mind, drove the mecha, turned back and rushed into the depths of the institute. Iron Bear, you are crazy. Zaka was originally evacuating with the Sun Clan's large army and suddenly saw Xia turn around and rush into the institute and shouted. Xia didn't answer, just rushed forward. This guy is so insidious. He actually wants to seize the last 3 minutes to surpass me and win the bet. Are you crazy? I'm crazier than you. Zaka turned around and flew behind Xia, chasing him closely. The bottom floor of the research institute. Lizardman Yus drove a tall mecha that was all red and exuded a strong smell of blood, standing in a pool of blood. The shape of this mecha was very strange, and it seemed to be covered with a layer of blood vessels all over the body, and it was still wriggling slightly. In the cockpit, thousands of blood vessels pierced into Yus' body like tentacles, making him look like a hedgehog. Gulp. These blood vessel tentacles kept sucking blood from Yus' body, making strange sounds. Yus's face was haggard and his body was shriveled, but he showed a crazy smile on his face. The Crimson Mecha is really powerful. I feel like I have become a god. Hahaha, I'm the only one in the world. This weird looking mecha is the Crimson Mecha given to the messenger by the mechanical race. At this moment, at the feet of the Crimson Mecha, there were more than a dozen broken bodies, all wearing white research suits. From the nameplates on their chests, it can be seen that these bodies were all senior researchers of the institute. Drive Kangaya, don't run away. You can't escape. Yus's face was full of hideous smiles. He drove the Crimson Mecha, that was filled with the smell of blood, stepped on the blood, and walked forward step by step, approaching a rat man in a white robe. You lunatic. Dr. Kangaya was drunk all day, and finally woke up at this time. His face was distorted, his body couldn't stop shaking, his legs were out of control, and he couldn't escape, even if he wanted to. This is the arrangement of the God's messenger. Abandoned. You and I are both abandoned. Yus grinned, and the right arm of the Crimson Mecha suddenly popped out. There were countless thick blood vessels on the arm that gathered into a hideous blood-red spear, and stabbed towards Dr. Kangaya. God's messenger. He is indeed a treacherous person. Dr. Kangaya was full of despair. Swish. At this moment, a blue flash appeared in the darkness, and a laser sword slashed down from top to bottom, directly cutting off the blood-red spear of the Crimson Mecha. Sorry, I want this bagrat. Tai Xiang drove a new type of steel violent bear mecha, holding two laser swords in his hands, and his figure emerged from the darkness. Puff. The right arm of the Crimson Mecha was cut off, and black and smelly blood gushed out like a spring. Mecha? Bleeding? Tai Xiang's brain was a little confused. Yus hugged his right arm, as if his body was cut off, and screamed heartbreakingly. Weird mecha. Iron Bear snorted coldly, and Iron Violent Bear reached out and grabbed Dr. Kanya's collar. Let's go. Big Rat. I'll save you. Dr. Kanya was shocked. Who are you? Why are you so powerful? You know, you are facing a crimson mecha. Kill you. Kill you. I must kill you. Yus's face became more distorted. His eyes were filled with blood, veins on his forehead bulged, and he screamed wildly. The bloody smell on the crimson mecha became stronger, like a substance, with a strong sticky feeling. Oh no. Yus's crimson mecha is going to run away. Run away quickly. Once it runs away, its strength is comparable to that of an S-class mecha master. Dr. Kanya was frightened and urged. Bang. The huge stone hammer like a mountain in the sky fell, directly smashing Yus and his mecha into a pool of meat paste. What crimson mecha? Is it very strong? Zaka's figure emerged and said lightly. Yus, dead. Dr. Kanga was a little confused. He stared at Teaching and Zaka with wide eyes and mouth, and could not help shouting, where did you perverts come from? That was a runaway crimson mecha. One, just one. Humph, you were quick this time. This head is yours. Teaching snorted coldly, and muttered in a low voice, human-headed dog. How many heads have you robbed of me? I only robbed one from you. How dare you? But forget it. Dogs are loyal animals, and in our Liang tribe it is a word of praise. Since you praise me, I won't bother with you. Zaka curled his lips. Praise you? Teaching was speechless for a while. Okay, you human-headed dog. This place is about to explode. Let's go. However, you are responsible for bringing back the wreckage of the Crimson Mecha. This is the order of the Marquis. Since it is the order of the Marquis, then I must obey. Zaka worked hard and picked up the bloody Crimson Mecha with both hands and flew towards the ground. Chapter 1235 Dr. Fear of Asia. Boom. The underground research institute exploded and a huge mushroom cloud rose into the sky. The whole planet was shaking. The ground was shaking. Huge cracks appeared on the ground, and there was smoke and flames everywhere, as if the world was about to end. Whoosh. Two figures rushed out from the flames, and they were Teaching and Zaka. Finally escaped. I thought I would die underground. Teaching was scared and sighed. It's all because of me. Zaka said coldly, just now at the critical moment, if I hadn't used the innate secret technique of the Liang clan to open the rock layer, you would have died underground. Such a terrible explosion. If I die, can you still not die? Teaching snorted coldly, but thank you. Although I thank you, but the bet between the two of us will be postponed. Sooner or later, I will compete with you. I'll wait for you. Zaka looked at Teaching. After fighting side by side this time, he also had some changes in his mind about this brave human. Perhaps, my understanding of humans is indeed biased. In addition to the savior, there are also some interesting guys among humans. Zaka thought to himself. Swish. Hundreds of flashes of light streaked across the sky, and the joint search team of the Sun Clan and Human Mecha divisions appeared in midair. Ah. Lord Zaka, you're okay. That's great. The Sun Clan warrior who led the search team was relieved to see that Zaka was safe and sound. Brother Teaching, you're not injured. The Human Mecha divisions also came forward. What's the situation? Where are the mutant Mecha divisions that escaped from the underground research institute? Teaching looked down at the radar on the console in surprise. There was no sign of fighting nearby, and the high energy detector did not respond. Lord Marquis led his soldiers to guard the sky above the underground research institute. When the mutants saw Lord Marquis, they surrendered directly. No one dared to resist, and they all became prisoners. Now they are locked up in the Star Domain Ark. A human mecha master laughed and said, Lord Marquis's reputation has spread throughout the entire Chaos Star Domain. He defeated the enemy without fighting. We really admire him. Of course. The boss is really a monster. Teaching sighed. Lord Marquis asked you two to return to the Star Domain Ark immediately. The mecha master said. Yes. Zaka and Teaching nodded, followed the search team through the atmosphere, and returned to the Star Domain Ark. Inside the Ark, everyone's face was filled with the joy of victory. After winning the battle, the fiery Sun Clan and humans temporarily forgot the estrangement, and they were like brothers, shoulder to shoulder, singing and celebrating. Xia sent the wreckage of the Crimson Mecha into the Mecha workshop, and then he and Xia escorted Dr. Kanya to the bridge of the Ark. Dr. Kanya's small rat eyes were rolling around, looking around, with a look of shock on his face. Is this the legendary Starfield Ark of Xia Xingchen? No wonder the Galactic Empire can do nothing to him. With this spaceship, the starry sky is vast, and you can travel freely. Swish. The electronic door opened automatically, and Dr. Kanya saw a young man wearing the uniform of an Imperial general sitting in the commander's position in the center of the bridge. The young man's appearance was not handsome, at best he could be called delicate, and the general's uniform was extremely well-fitting, which made him look tall. There was no expression on his face, his brows were slightly wrinkled, and his lips were slightly pursed, as if he was thinking about something. In general, if it weren't for this general's uniform, this young man would be considered ordinary. The only thing worth noting is that there was a hidden brilliance in the depths of his eyes, and when his eyes moved, it seemed as if there were stars twinkling, and behind the starlight, there was even more of the depth and desolation of the extinction of the stars. Dr. Kanga's legs softened when he was swept by this gaze, and he almost knelt on the ground, sweating profusely. He thought to himself, this young man is Xia Xingchen. He is indeed as young as the rumors say. But he is even more terrifying than the rumors say. Just being swept by his gaze makes me tremble with fear. Even when facing the messenger of God, I don't feel this way. Xia Xingchen's eyes swept over Dr. Kanga's body. Seeing a huge rat in a white robe, no one would feel very good, and they couldn't help but feel disgusted. Xia, Xingchen, you two did a great job. We conquered the planet Rutenforth without losing a single soldier. This is the credit of the two of you. Later, I will reward you handsomely. Xia Xingchen looked at Xia and Xingchen, and a smile appeared on his face. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The two of them stood at attention and saluted. Who is this mutant? Xia Xingchen's eyes fell on Dr. Kanya again. Xingchen was about to explain. Ahem. Kanya often said hurriedly, my name is Kanya. Of course, this is a fake name. My real name is Andreas, and I'm a professor of biology at Lankai University. Lankai University? Xia Xingchen was slightly startled, and said with emotion, is it Lankai University on Lankai Star? That's right. There is only one Lankai University in the Empire. Dr. Kanya straightened his chest and said proudly, boss, where is Lankai University? Tai Xiang asked. Lankai University is one of the top 10 universities in the Empire. In particular, the biochemical laboratory of this university can be ranked in the top 3 in the Empire. It is even higher than the ranking of Shianyu and Star University, only below Lingji Star. Xia Xingchen whispered, I didn't expect that this ugly big rat is actually a senior intellectual. He is the only senior researcher who survived the underground research institute. The other researchers were killed by the messenger of God. Tai Xiang said. Drive Kanya. Xia Xingchen nodded. Although I'm a rough man, I like to deal with educated people. I don't care what your relationship with the messenger of God is, and why you have fallen from a professor at a famous university to your current situation. I only ask you one question. The messenger of God wants to kill you. Will you continue to be loyal to him in the future? I don't want to be loyal to him either, but I can't help myself. Dr. Kanya sighed. You should be very clear about the horror of the messenger of God. He is extremely good at controlling people, and it is not easy to betray him. You should have a mental mark left by the messenger of God on your body. It seems that you are also a very important person to the messenger of God. Xia Xingchen's omniscience covered Dr. Kanya's entire body, and he nodded slightly. The mental mark is indeed very troublesome. But what if I can guarantee your safety and help you remove the mental mark? Remove the mental mark? Can you really remove the mental mark? Dr. Kanya was stunned, his face full of disbelief. Finally, I don't have to hear the voice of the messenger of God in my damn brain anymore. God, I'm really going crazy by his voice. Close your eyes and feel carefully to see if there is any noise in your mind. Xia Xingchen said, you are absolutely safe in my star domain arc. Even the messenger of God can't do anything to you. Chapter 1236 Side Effects. Dr. Kanya really closed his eyes. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes again, with an excited look on his face. Great. My mind is finally clear. It's just temporary. Xia Xingchen said, if you want to remove the mental mark, it depends on whether you are sincere. Cooperation, of course. As long as the Marquis can help me remove the mental mark, I'm willing to die. Dr. Kanya patted his chest and promised. Talking to smart people is indeed labor saving. Xia Xingchen stood up, walked in front of Dr. Kanya, and stretched out his right hand. Then I wish us a happy cooperation. Dr. Kanya was stunned. He was silent for a long time, then stretched out his skinny rat claws, shook Xia Xingchen's hand lightly, and shrank back, as if he had been electrocuted. It can be seen that Dr. Kanya is still very inferior to his appearance as a big rat. Doctor, I have some doubts. I hope you can help me answer them. Xia Xingchen waved his hand and asked Li Huami to make a pot of tea and asked Dr. Kanya to sit next to him and treat him as a guest of honor. I don't deserve it. Dr. Kanya was flattered and said repeatedly, my Lord Marquis, please feel free to ask. As long as I know, I will tell you everything. The principle of the Ascension Potion. Xia Xingchen's eyes flickered. I'm very interested in this kind of potion that can stimulate human potential. With your professional knowledge, can the Ascension Potion eliminate the side effects, that is, eliminate the possibility of becoming an alien and genetic collapse, and stably allow the strong to unlock the genetic lock? Ah, my Lord Marquis is actually interested in the Ascension Potion. Dr. Kanya was shocked. Anyone is interested in potions that can improve strength. Of course, the premise is that there is no risk. Xia Xingchen said in a deep voice. This is the core secret of the chosen organization. No one knows this secret, except me and a few people. But, since I promised the Marquis, I will tell you this secret. Dr. Kanya thought for a moment, gritted his teeth and said, the formula and development method of the Ascension Potion were provided by the celestial being behind the God's messenger. However, the formula of the potion was not original to that clan of celestial beings, but they got it from other places. I know this. The celestial being behind the God's messenger is a spiritual celestial being. They have reached an extremely high level in the research of mental power. However, they don't know much about the physical body. If I'm not mistaken, the physical bodies of this clan of celestial beings are very weak. They completely abandoned their physical bodies a long time ago and became purely spiritual beings. Xia Xingchen nodded. Dr. Kanya's words were consistent with the information he had obtained. A long time ago, the God's envoy planned to establish the chosen organization with the goal of abducting humans and conducting secret human experiments. After sacrificing many people and creating many monsters, the formula of the Ascension Potion was gradually perfected. Then, under the instruction of the Heavenly Man, the God's envoy established the Heavenly Man religion. The powerful effect of the Ascension Potion is the foundation of the Heavenly Man religion. Dr. Kanya showed a painful look on his face. I also helped the evil and did many unforgivable things. You should make amends now. Xia Xingchen remained calm, but secretly happy in his heart. Unexpectedly, this ugly Dr. Kanya was actually a veteran of the chosen organization and knew many secrets. This time, he would definitely be able to dig out the God's envoy's background. Doctor, why does the Ascension Potion turn people into ugly monsters? Moreover, the types are different. Most of them look like reptiles, some look like insects, and you look like? Xia Xingchen asked. Like a big rat, right? I have attempted suicide countless times, but was rescued every time. Dr. Kanya sighed and stretched out his wrist, which was covered with dense knife marks. He shook his head and said, forget it, let's not talk about this. Maybe this is my retribution. Let's continue talking about the Ascension Potion. Yeah. Xia Xingchen nodded. It is a well-known fact in the biological world that there are restrictions hidden in the human gene chain. It is just that they are not made public for fear of causing unrest. This restriction is called a gene lock. It is precisely because of the existence of the gene lock that human evolution has not made obvious progress since the Earth era. There are actually many ways to unlock the gene lock, but most of them are accidents. For example, someone was struck by lightning and accidentally unlocked the gene lock and gained powerful power. Someone was bitten by a poisonous insect and survived the disaster and also unlocked the gene lock. There are also people who received radiation from mysterious light. This method has a common feature, which is that it cannot be replicated. The only recognized way to unlock the gene lock is through meditation and various mental exercises to improve the mental level to the legendary level. Use human's own mental power to break through the restrictions of the gene lock. Dr. Kanya talked freely. It turns out that the academic community has already reached a conclusion. Xia Xingchen sighed in his heart. It's just a monopoly of knowledge. Dr. Kanya sneered. The empire controls such a huge starry sky territory and has trillions of people. If it didn't monopolize knowledge and implement a policy of keeping the people ignorant, then the empire would have been finished long ago. In fact, the forefront of human technology is already beyond the imagination of ordinary people. It's just that most people live in lies and can't see the truth behind it. Xia Xingchen was silent. He was born a miner and was deeply touched by Dr. Kanya's words. Power monopoly, wealth monopoly, resource monopoly, these are not scary. The most scary thing is knowledge monopoly. If Xia Xingchen hadn't been lucky enough to enter the empire's highest institution of learning through Kinjaina's nepotism, then he would also be living in lies. Except for spiritual practice and achieving legendary success, humans cannot break through the genetic lock, nor can they continue to evolve. The emergence of the Ascension Potion has changed all of this. Dr. Kanya continued, the principle of the Ascension Potion is very complicated. I will try to use words that you can understand. Well, let me think about it. The biggest difficulty in breaking through the genetic lock is actually genetic collapse. Human genes are very stable, one link after another, tightly combined like gears. In order to overcome genetic collapse, we use the Ascension Potion to insert some powerful gene fragments of wild beasts into the original human genes. This approach is very effective, and some people can indeed overcome genetic collapse. But the side effects are also great. In addition to the mutation in appearance, it is also necessary to take gene stabilizers for a long time. Once you stop taking it, the mutant's whole body will be itchy and sore, as if countless ants are gnawing at the bone marrow. No one can endure this kind of pain. Even if you can endure it, you will soon die from genetic collapse. You mean, the most serious side effect of the Ascension Potion is still genetic collapse. Moreover, this side effect can only be delayed by drugs, but not cured. Xia Xingchen was surprised. That's right. The Ascension Potion is actually a poison. And it's a poison that can't be detoxified. After drinking it, you will definitely die. It's just a matter of time. Dr. Kanya said firmly. There is really no shortcut to unlocking the gene lock. The only right way is to practice hard. Xia Xingchen sighed. Chapter 1237 Biological Mecha. Dr. Kanya, you just mentioned the gene stabilizer? Xia Xingchen's eyes lit up and asked. Yes. Gene stabilizer. There are two ways for the God's envoy to control people. One is his own superpowers, and the other is the gene stabilizer. Every 7 days, the mutants who have taken the Ascension Potion will receive the gene stabilizer from him. If they do not take it in time, their genes will collapse, and they will die. That kind of death is really miserable. Dr. Kanya shuddered. The God's envoy is too despicable. Xia Xingchen said angrily, I knew that. Even if he has powerful psychic powers, he does not have enough mental power to control thousands of people. It turns out that he relies on drugs to control. However, the gene stabilizer is not difficult to make. If I am given a biochemical laboratory, I can imitate the gene stabilizer on a large scale. But the Ascension Potion is not the same. I have mastered the formula, but it is impossible to make it in a short time. Dr. Kanya thought for a while and said, Doctor, you can make gene stabilizers. Great. Biochemical laboratory, easy. As long as you can make enough gene stabilizers, I can give the God's messenger a fatal blow. Xia Xingchen's mind emerged with a plan to defeat the God's messenger's bold plan in one fell swoop. My Lord Marquis, I won't let you down. I'm not helping you, but saving myself. Dr. Kanya said, okay. Doctor, I will immediately open up an area for you as your new laboratory. As for the instruments you need, you can ask her. I promise you will never be disappointed. Xia Xingchen pointed at Li Huami and said, Huami, take the doctor down to rest and meet all his requirements. Yes, sir. Li Huami nodded and took Dr. Kanya away. Gene stabilizer. As long as I have it, I will give it away for free. I believe that most mutants will turn against the gods. This is an important means to defeat the gods. Then, we just need to get rid of the new mecha that the gods got from the mechanical race. Xia Xingchen sat in his seat, thought for a moment, and then left the bridge, letting Tianxiang and Zaka follow him, and walk towards the mecha workshop. On the other side, the Crimson Mecha was sent to the mecha workshop of the Star Domain Arc. Kang Xiu led a group of mecha craftsmen, and used various instruments to analyze this strange mecha. How is it possible? This mecha? Weird. Too weird. I have never seen such a mecha. Who of you has seen it? The mecha craftsmen showed shocked expressions on their faces, and Kang Xiu's face was also very ugly, with his brows tightly furrowed. Xia Xingchen walked in, and the mecha craftsman didn't even notice him at the first time. What's the result? Xia Xingchen looked at Kang Xiu. Ah. Lord Marquis. Kang Xiu woke up, as if from a dream, and said quickly, Lord, the preliminary analysis has been completed. The situation is very strange. We don't understand it either. You better see it with your own eyes. Yes. Xia Xingchen nodded and followed Kang Xiu to a terminal. The remains of the Crimson Mecha on the table were bloody, and looked like a pool of broken organs. You could even see the blood vessels wriggling slightly inside. What the hell is this? Xia Xingchen was stunned when he saw the various parameters on the screen, and said in surprise, the various parameters of the Crimson Mecha are more like a living thing than a machine. It has all the characteristics that only living things have, such as body temperature, heartbeat, blood pressure, and pulse. Is this really a mecha? Kang Xiu couldn't believe it. Biological mecha. Xia Xingchen was silent for a long time, took a breath, and said slowly, the development history of human mecha is very long. Over the past 1,000 years, all kinds of strange mechas have appeared, but most of them are short-lived and disappeared in the torrent of time. Biological mecha is one of the very different mechas. Biological mecha is not a star beast armor. Star beast armor is a star beast mecha made of biological materials, but the materials are different. The core is still a mechanical system, and the energy is a nuclear fusion engine. The biological mecha uses the entire organism as a mecha, and the driver controls it through a mental sensor device. The core is the organism, and at most the mechanical system is used as an auxiliary. In fact, biological mecha is just a bold idea. Due to the limitations of technology, humans have never created a real biological mecha. Now, the unique biological mecha in human history appeared in front of Xia Xingchen, making him tremble all over. Analysis. Continue to analyze. Comprehensive analysis. Xia Xingchen pulled a chair and sat next to him, obviously ready to wait and watch the analysis process of the Crimson Mecha with his own eyes. Xia Xingchen's time is very precious. He himself is not a person who likes to waste time. He uses every bit of fragmented time on meditation and practice. It may take a lot of time to analyze the Crimson Mecha. However, Xia Xingchen chose to wait. A brand new mecha with unknown technology is worth Xia Xingchen's time to wait. Yes, sir. Kang Xiu agreed and entered the busy analysis work with the mecha craftsman. Time passed by minute. 3 hours later, Kang Xiu came over with a report, his face pale, his body trembling slightly because of excitement, and said excitedly, Sir, the preliminary analysis results are out. The Crimson Mecha is indeed a biological mecha. It is indeed a biological mecha. Xia Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief. There is a question I can't figure out. Kang Xiu said, I hope you can help me solve it. Yes. Xia Xingchen nodded. Whether it is a star skeleton beast armor or a traditional steel mecha, the energy system, transmission device, control system, thruster, the technology is extremely mature. Why would someone develop a biological mecha? Moreover, the one who made this biological mecha should be a celestial being of the mechanical race. Their technological direction should also be mechanical. Why would they study biological flesh and make it into a mecha? Kang Xiu asked. The celestial being can do everything. You should have heard this sentence. Xia Xingchen looked at Kang Xiu. Of course I have heard of it. Even children have heard of it. Kang Xiu nodded. Now I tell you, the celestial beings are not omnipotent. They are living beings, not gods. Since they are not gods, they have their own limits. The mechanical celestial beings have extremely strong computing power and incredible technology. However, they have a fatal weakness, which is that they cannot have mental power. They can't even understand what mental power is. Perhaps it is for this reason that they study biological bodies and create biological mechas in order to study mental power. Xia Xingchen suddenly thought of Carlos, who was a powerful silicon-based life, but he longed to be a human. The silicon-based life of the mechanical race longed to have a body and emotions. Isn't it the same for humans? They obviously have mental power, but they have to use steel as their bodies, drive mechas, and travel through the stars? Chapter 1238, The Outlier Among the Outliers. I see. Thank you for your guidance. Kang Xiu nodded, but he still didn't quite understand. Xia Xingchen took the analysis report from Kang Xiu and read it page by page. With each page, the shock on his face became more intense. The report had hundreds of pages, and it took Xia Xingchen a full hour to finish it. Xia Xingchen sat in a daze on the chair for a full 10 minutes, before he let out a long breath, and said 2 words, terrible. Even for the Suzaku and Azure Dragon mechas, Xia Xingchen never gave the evaluation of terrible. Because no matter how powerful the Suzaku and Azure Dragon mechas are, they are still within Xia Xingchen's understanding. The technology of the Suzuki mecha is already incredible enough, but Xia Xingchen can still understand it. However, the Crimson mecha is different. The idea of this mecha is very different from the idea of humans making mechas. It can be said to be an outlier among outliers. In other words, even the craziest mecha designer among humans cannot design such a mecha. Only alien races like the mechanical race, whose ideas are completely different from those of humans, can design it. First of all, let's talk about the energy system of the Crimson mecha. The Crimson mecha does not even have any energy system. After the human mecha master sits in the driver's seat of the Crimson mecha, thousands of blood vessels will immediately extend from the wall and pierce into the mecha master's body, continuously extracting blood, using the mecha master's mental power and vitality as power. The mecha master is not the operator of the Crimson mecha, but the parasite. The Crimson mecha is like a huge parasite, parasitic on the human mecha master. The most terrifying thing about the Crimson mecha is that it can directly use human superpowers and amplify its effects thousands of times. It can be said that the Crimson mecha is a giant the size of a mecha. Start the mecha combat power rating system. I want to evaluate the level of the Crimson mecha. Xia Xingchen put down the report in his hand and said, yes. The mecha craftsmen immediately got busy. They all wanted to know what the actual combat capability of the Crimson mecha is, whether it is a level of technology or the design ideas. For a mecha, the most important thing is its combat capability. It is not the case that the higher the technological level, the stronger the combat capability of the mecha. Xia Xingchen could not imagine the technological level of the Crimson mecha. However, judging from the current information, he was not optimistic about this mecha. The strength of the flesh cannot be compared with that of steel. The wreckage of the Crimson mecha was immediately sent to the scanner. Beep, beep. The optical computer started to analyze the Crimson mecha. After dozens of seconds, a line of words appeared on the screen. Crimson mecha, rating D2S, specific combat power cannot be evaluated. Cannot be evaluated. Why is this so? Even the rating system cannot be evaluated. Everyone was surprised. This was the first time they encountered such a thing. Kang Xiu, what's going on? Xia Xingchen was also surprised. Sir, I don't know either. I don't fully understand this evaluation system. However, after my debugging, I can now use the spectator function to randomly watch a simulated battle. Maybe I can see some clues. Kang Xiu said with sweat on his forehead. The principle of the mecha combat power evaluation system is actually very simple. The optical computer uses the mecha drawings and parameters to simulate the mecha in the virtual space and creates enemies of different strengths for simulated battles. After thousands or even tens of thousands of battles, the objective combat data of the mecha is obtained. Well, let's take a look. Xia Xingchen nodded. Kang Xiu immediately operated on the terminal. A large screen appeared above everyone's head. The picture inside was the dark background of the starry sky. A Crimson mecha with a hideous appearance, like blood vessels appeared and floated in the starry sky. On the other side, there was a D-level Silver White Space Knight mecha. This was a D-level battle. Kang Xiu explained on the side. The optical computer not only simulated the mecha, but also simulated the mecha master. There is no difference between the mecha masters on both sides. They are all D-level mecha masters. Superpowers are the most common power. Everyone held their breath and looked up at the battle between the two mechas on the screen. The battle began. Swish. The two mechas collided with each other and fought in a ball. The attack method of the Crimson Mech is very strange. It is not fast, but very flexible. It is like a human martial arts master who can make many incredible and clever movements in the starry sky. In contrast, the Space Knight is much more conventional. The Mech's movements are not sensitive, and there is a clear sense of delay and stagnation. This is not because the performance of the Space Knight is not good, but because the level of the D-level Mech Master in manipulating the Mech is only this level on average. The battle lasted for 3 minutes. In the end, the Crimson Mech pierced the cockpit of the Space Knight and finally won. The Crimson Mech was also scarred, with a huge wound on the abdomen, blood flowing out, and the intestines could be seen moving faintly. It won, but it was a miserable victory. After fighting with the Space Knight like this, the Crimson Mech is just so-so. Xia Xingchen shook his head, a little disappointed. Judging from the result of this battle, the Crimson Mech is only a D-level level. Next is the C-level battle. Kang Xiu called up a video of another battle. The C-level battle was similar to the situation just now. In the end, the Crimson Mech won, but it was still a miserable victory. However, after watching this battle, Xia Xingchen was slightly moved. There is a world of difference between the performance of C-class mecha and E-class mecha. Unless the level of the mecha masters is very different, otherwise, the C-class mecha will definitely crush the D-class mecha. However, the mecha masters simulated by the optical brain, even if they are the same person on both sides, are definitely evenly matched. Find a B-class battle. Xia Xingchen ordered. Yes, sir. Kang Xiu moved his fingers and found a B-class battle. This time, Xia Xingchen watched very carefully, and he found that when the Crimson Mecha fought with the B-class Mecha, the fighting style had changed greatly. The thick blood vessels on the Crimson Mecha, like the vines of a plant, condensed into a blood-red spear, attacking the B-class Mecha. With each attack, the B-class Mecha will lose some energy, and the Mecha Master's mental power will also decrease. Correspondingly, the energy of the Crimson Mecha increases, and the Mecha Master's mental power increases. Plunder. Xia Xingchen finally understood and said in surprise, plunder attack. The Crimson Mecha has no energy system of its own. Its design concept is plunder. First, it plunders its own Mech Masters. Then it plunders the enemy. So that's it. No wonder its rating is not fixed, ranging from D to S. This is a mech that gets stronger when it encounters a strong opponent, plundering the enemy's energy and mental power to replenish itself. How can there be such a perverted mech? Everyone was surprised. So it seems that, although the overall performance of the Crimson Mech is not as good as the TOT mech, however, this mech is very difficult to deal with. It is a difficult opponent. I must conquer the Crimson Mech before I can defeat the God's Messenger. Xia Xingchen clenched his fists tightly, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 1239. The Final Battle of the Holy Temple. Not good. Xia Xingchen's brows suddenly frowned. The God's Envoy has obtained the Crimson Mecha, and I don't know how many there are. However, this kind of mecha is so strange. I'm afraid that Brother Edward will be in trouble. Tai Xiang, contact Brother Edward immediately. Let him avoid the sharp edge temporarily, and don't have a head-on conflict with the God's Envoy's army before I rush to the front battlefield. Xia Xingchen's heart trembled, and he waved Tai Xiang to come over and ordered. Yes, sir. Tai Xiang also realized the seriousness of the matter, saluted, and hurriedly retreated to contact Edward. HMM. Xia Xingchen looked through the Crimson Mecha analysis report in his hand again, and the more he read, the more frightened he felt. In just a few minutes, Xia Xingchen felt uneasy, and an ominous premonition was churning in his mind. This matter is of great importance. Forget it. I will go and tell Brother Edward in person. Xia Xingchen was still worried. However, Tixin had already run back with a panicked look on his face, and shouted in panic, "Boss, it's not good." Lord Edward has gathered 10,000 starships and 100,000 mecha armies, preparing to attack the Holy Temple where the God's messenger is, and he wants to fight to the death. Fight to the death. Xia Xingchen was stunned and said in amazement, "Why did Brother Edward make such a reckless decision?" Because the victory news of Routen number 4 reached Lord Edward's ears, and he was very happy. He wanted to take advantage of the victory and defeat the God's messenger in one fell swoop. Xia stammered, "So that's how it is." Xia Xingchen's heart trembled. I'm afraid Edward didn't just want to take advantage of the victory, but more because he didn't want to admit defeat. Edward wanted to become the overlord of the Chaos Star domain, and he must have real military exploits. However, from the current situation, Edward's limelight has been snatched away by Xia Xingchen. If this continues, even if Edward is helped to the position of the Lord of the Chaos Star domain, his prestige is not enough to make his subordinates surrender. Brother Edward, I understand your feelings. However, the enemy's situation is unknown. You rushed out and started a decisive battle. It was indeed reckless. Xia Xingchen sighed and turned to look at Xia. Can you contact Brother Edward? He can't win this battle. We must stop the attack immediately. Xia shook his head. It's too late. Lord Edward's starship army has assembled and started to jump. The Super Wav communicator cannot capture the signal. When they finish the jump, they must be near the Holy Temple. The arrow is on the string and must be fired. This battle must be fought. It's too late. Xia Xingchen was silent for a moment, waved his hand and said, Starfield Arc, adjust the route immediately. Target, Holy Temple. We must support Brother Edward. Win this losing battle. Holy Temple. Fighting a head-on battle with the Envoy of God. Great. There hasn't been a large-scale battle for a long time. My mecha has been thirsty for a long time. The faces of the mecha masters showed ecstasy. Swish. The Starfield Arc turned around in the starry sky, immediately entered the warp state, and flew towards the direction of the Holy Star. In the dark and lightless subspace, a fleet of starships was like a shining silver arrow, sailing at a speed close to the speed of light. On the bridge of the large starship New Jackdaw, Edward looked worried, his eyes fixed on the dark space outside the window. Zuma, do you think we can win? Edward asked the man behind him in a low voice without turning around. Zuma, known as the White Death, is Edward's capable subordinate. He immediately said, Sir, we will definitely win this battle. In terms of military strength, we have assembled 100,000 mecha troops, which completely crushed the mutant defense forces of the Holy Temple. In terms of morale, Lord Xingchen wiped out the Biochemical Research Institute of Routen number 4 without a single soldier, and dealt a fatal blow to the messenger of God. The morale of the enemy is low, and our morale is high. If we don't fight now, when will we fight? Indeed. From the timing alone, now is the time to decide the victory. Edward put his hands behind his back, slowly shook his head and smiled bitterly. I hope I'm overthinking. I always have a bad feeling. Sir, our strength is so strong that it is enough to break all accidents. Zuma and several other captains were full of confidence, with a raging fire of war burning in their eyes. Well, we will win this battle. Edward clenched his fists tightly and shouted coldly, all members are ready. The Holy Temple is right in front of us. It's time for us to make achievements. Swish. 10,000 starships of all sizes appeared in the universe, reflecting cold light on their hulls, looking solemn and dignified. The 100,000 mecha army has been fully prepared at this moment, and the mecha divisions are all excited, waiting for Edward's order. All out attack. Edward looked at the nearby Holy Temple star, raised his right hand, swung it down suddenly, and shouted decisively. Boom. The main guns of 10,000 starships gathered energy at the same time, forming a star-filled sky in the universe. After a short period of charging, tens of millions of laser beams gathered together and turned into a colorful energy beam, bombarding the surface of the Holy Temple star. A mushroom cloud appeared in the atmosphere of the Holy Temple star, and then a huge light bubble quickly expanded on the surface of the planet, and the area covered by the light bubble was raised to the ground. With the main gun attack, the final battle officially began. The thrusters behind the 100,000 mecha army started at full speed, and behind them were flashing with colorful lights, like a fire meteor, falling towards the surface of the Holy Temple star. Speed is of the essence. Edward attacked very quickly and thought he didn't leave any reaction time for the god's messenger. However, black holes appeared on the ground of the temple star. The anti-aircraft artillery was like trees in the forest, and the muzzles were spewing crazy flames. Obviously, the god's messenger had anticipated Edward's surprise attack and had made thorough defensive measures. My battle plan has been leaked. There is a spy around me. Edward jumped up from his chair, walked quickly to the window, and stared down at the roaring artillery of the temple star. Now he realized that his every move was under the surveillance of the god's messenger. The god's messenger's ability to control people is too terrifying. He can even control the princess of the Empire Star to assassinate her own brother. It is easy for him to control one or two captains around me to obtain intelligence. However, the situation of the war will not change because of this. In the face of absolute strength, all conspiracies and tricks are like soap bubbles in the sun, which will disappear in the blink of an eye. Edward was not shaken by this. He must win this battle. After the long-range bombardment of the starships, the originally desolate temple star became desolate, and the earth was burned by flames, leaving a huge black scar, which looked shocking from afar in the universe. After losing 10% of its troops, the 100,000 Mecha army broke through the crossfire network of anti-aircraft artillery and landed on the surface of the temple star. There are countless Mecha ejection ports hidden on the ground and peaks of the temple star. At this moment, all of them are opened, and thousands of Mechas are ejected from the ground to the ground and join the battle. The strategic goal of the Battle of the Temple Star is only one: to annihilate the opponent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1240, Great Defeat. Completely wipe out the enemy. This is the most difficult strategic goal, because it means that no matter how fierce the firepower of the starships in the starry skies, and no matter how dense the energy laser cannons are, they can only provide fire support in outer space. Only when the Mecha army enters the interior of the Holy Temple and annexes and clears the fields can this task be completed. Under the influence of such a demanding strategic goal, the war skipped the confrontation stage and soon entered the white-hot stage of Mecha melee. The brilliant laser cannons illuminated the sky, the air was filled with explosions, and the fierce collision of metal and non-metal, in addition to the hot sparks flying everywhere, was filled with the smell of blood. Thousands of Crimson Mechas quietly joined the battle. These Crimson Mechas did not attract the attention of Edward and his Mecha divisions in the early stages of the war. This strange biological Mecha is huge in size, with real muscles, skin, blood vessels, and bones. After the limbs are cut off by the laser sword, a large amount of rancid plasma will emerge, and the Mecha will also make a shrill wail. The Mecha divisions fighting with the Crimson Mechas have to bear tremendous psychological pressure. However, apart from that, the Mecha Masters did not feel the power of the Crimson Mecha, at least not strong enough to change the situation in an instant. However, when Edward and the Mecha Masters came to their senses and discovered the horror of the Crimson Mecha, it was too late. What kind of weird Mecha is this? A-class Mecha Master Hamel drove a heavy assault Mecha, wielding a huge trident in his hand, and pierced a Crimson Mecha. Puff. Blood spurted out from the wound, splashing onto Hamel's Mecha cockpit, dyeing the transparent bulletproof cabin wall a deep red. The air purifier of the Mecha was running, but it could not filter out the bloody smell in the air. Even Hamel, a Mecha Master who had experienced many battles, could not help but feel sick. Not dead yet, Hamel was shocked to find that the Crimson Mecha, pierced through the chest by the trident, was still able to move. However, the cockpit of this weird Mecha in front of him had clearly been shattered by him. He could even see that a mutant driver had blood vessels all over his body, and his body had completely dried up, turning into a mummy. The driver is dead. How can the Mecha still move? Hamel was shocked. He didn't believe in ghosts and gods, but facing the unknown, he felt a deep fear in his bones, and his body couldn't stop trembling. Whoosh. At the moment, when Hamel lost consciousness, the thick blood vessels at the wound of the Crimson Mecha spread quietly, turning into a blood-red spear, suddenly piercing Hamel's Mecha cockpit, hitting his chest, and nailing him to the wall. Cough. The huge impact force broke Hamel's sternum, and he spit out a mouthful of blood. He watched with his own eyes that thousands of small spikes appeared at the front of the blood-red spear, like the mouthpits of a mosquito, piercing into his heart and sucking blood crazily. But Hamel's mind was blank, his body couldn't move, and he could only watch his blood being plundered by the Crimson Mecha. In addition to Hamel's blood and mental power, the engine position of his mech was also covered with a layer of blood-colored moss, and the energy index on the dashboard dropped madly. The Crimson Mech not only plundered the Mech Master's vitality and mental power, but also plundered the Mech's energy. In the horrible scar on the Crimson Mech's chest, thousands of blood vessels wriggled like tentacles and gathered together after a few seconds. The wound healed and recovered as before. A vague sound came from the Crimson Mech's throat, and it soared into the sky again, restored to its peak combat power, and threw itself into the battle. The only difference from before was that countless blood vessel tentacles covered Hamel's mech, like a blood-colored insect pupa, and the Crimson Mech was fighting with a huge blood-colored insect pupa on its back. As time passed, it was no longer surprising for a Crimson Mech to have a blood-colored insect pupa behind it. Some Crimson Mechas had blood-colored insect pupae carrying 2 mechas behind them, even 3, 4. The most terrifying Crimson Mech, with 12 blood-colored pupae connected to it, was like a giant centipede, charging across the battlefield, invincible. Even an A-class Mech Master was quickly killed by this giant blood-colored centipede. The mech was parasitized and turned into a blood-colored pupae, becoming the energy source of the Crimson Mech. What kind of mech is this? It's like a hermit crab. When the original host dies, it immediately changes to a new host. The Mech Masters were all terrified when they saw this scene. No, I can't hold on. Devil. The enemy is the incarnation of the devil. Run. The enemy is not human. It's completely invincible. I don't want to die. Even if I die, I don't want to become the food of this devil. The situation of the war was completely reversed by the Crimson Mech, and the Mech Masters were panicked one by one, and the public channel was filled with disordered sounds of wailing and panic. In the starry sky, Edward's skin turned purple. He stood there dumbfounded, staring at the screen, watching his soldiers being slaughtered by the enemy. Facing the Crimson Mecha, he had to bear tremendous psychological pressure. This horrible parasitic plundering method shattered Edward's morale. Even Edward himself was in a panic at this moment. The unknown is the source of panic. Facing an unknown enemy, even a strong Mecha Master with a firm mind lost the will to fight. Then, there was a great defeat. The Crimson Mechas emerged from the ground like an ant colony, as if they were endless. They advanced 1 kilometer, and Edward's Mecha army retreated 2 kilometers. In just 30 minutes, the envoy regained control of the interior space of the Holy Temple and drove all the enemies out of the atmosphere. Prepare my mecha. Edward couldn't sit still, and said to his adjutant with a sullen face. Sir, you can't do that. The enemy is so terrible, and you alone can't change the situation. Why don't we retreat first, and make a long-term plan? The adjutant was also panicked and suggested. Make a long-term plan? Edward shook his head and smiled bitterly. Don't forget, I'm not a soldier after all, but a space pirate. You are not soldiers to me, but brothers who have risked life and death together. If we can't live together, we'd rather die together. If I can use my life to exchange for more people to leave safely, then my death is valuable. Edward has seen through it. In such a rout, the messenger of God will never let it go. He will definitely send a large army to attack and hunt down the deserters. The defeat is like a landslide. Only by sending people to cover the rear can the large army have a chance to breathe. And the person who covers the rear will surely die. Edward would rather cover the rear himself and let more people survive. Wrong time, wrong opportunity, launching a wrong war. I will bear these mistakes alone. Edward's eyes flashed. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Prepare my mecha. Rom, call my guards. We will go to cover them and stop the pursuers. Yes, my master. Rom said loyally in a low voice. Chapter 1241 Turning the Tide of War. The Holy Planet. The entire planet was shrouded in flames of war, with fires burning everywhere and smoke everywhere. The 100,000 mecha troops that Edward had assembled with great effort were defeated, and they fled in panic toward the outer atmosphere. Under the ground of the Holy Planet, Crimson Mechas continued to pour out. Thousands and thousands of them gathered into a sea of blood. In addition to the Crimson Mechas, countless mutants drove their own Mechas out to kill the fallen dogs. The envoy of God arranged spies around Edward, not just to get information about his war. These spies incited and affected Edward's judgment, causing him to rashly assemble troops and hastily start a war. In the underground space of the Holy Planet, not only were there a large number of Crimson Mechas lurking, but the mutant defense forces of several nearby planets were also recalled by the envoy of God without anyone noticing. In order to give Edward a fatal blow, a huge crack appeared on the ground, and one starship after another rose from the ground, densely packed, across the sky, covering the sky, and blocking out the sun. There was even a 10,000-meter-long space aircraft carrier that flew out from a mountain. There were also more than a dozen large starships, hundreds of medium-sized starships, and even more small starships, countless in number. The God's envoy had been prepared for a long time. This time, he had already come out in full force, gathering all his troops, wanting to completely wipe out Edward and others. On the starship, the mutant warriors all had grim smiles on their faces, exuding murderous aura. So many troops are hidden. Edward and the deputy leaders and captains of the Jackdaw Star Pirates were all terrified. The God's envoy is going to eat me up. Edward felt the anger burning in his chest, clenched his teeth, and said angrily. Obviously, the God's envoy did not intend to let Edward's army leave the Holy Star region alive, and wanted to wipe them out. Starships and mutant mechas followed behind, and the ones rushing in the front were groups of Crimson Mechas. Behind the Crimson Mechas were blood-colored pupae, and the smell of blood was pungent, like a sea of blood and corpses, which made people palpitate just by looking at it. It doesn't matter whether the troops are strong or weak. The problem is these weird Crimson Mechas. If it weren't for the Crimson Mechas, with my troops, I would have the strength to fight against the messengers of God. Edward was regretting. If he knew the information about the Crimson Mechas, he would definitely not attack blindly and fall into the current dilemma. There is no other way. Rom, and my guards, follow me to cover the rear. Edward's eyes were stern, and he had already made up his mind. He shouted and rushed out first in the new Jackdaw Mecha, blocking the thousands of pursuers. Stupid. Edward, how can you fight against my army with just a few of you? Even if we don't fire, the number of starship mechas will crush you into powder. On the 10,000-meter-long space carrier, the God's envoy no longer hides his head and shows his tail, and stands out carelessly, with a sneer on his ugly snake face. Recently, the troops of the God's envoy have been suppressed by Edward, hiding from place to place, and suffering a lot. This time, he finally has the ability to counterattack, and the God's envoy wants to humiliate Edward severely. Kill the others. Save Edward's life. I must control him, and make him my strongest mutant warrior. The God's envoy's plan on the Azure Star did not succeed, but he still wanted to control a real legendary mutant warrior. Edward is the best test subject. Behind the God's envoy, a tall man covered with armor came over, and it was the Star Pirate Overlord Terminator. This battle will definitely destroy Edward and all his living forces. The overall situation is determined. Even if Xia Xingchen has more means. With the power of one person and one ship, he can't change the pattern of the entire chaotic starfield. Humph, even if he appears on this battlefield, I'm here, he will definitely die. The End sneered, very confident. In the eyes of the End, the Crimson Mecha was not even 1,000th of the power of the Teoti Mecha, but it defeated Edward's army. This made the End extremely confident, and he had the arrogant idea that the world is so big, who else but me could do it? Not far ahead, Edward led more than 30 guards to drive mechas suspended in the air, facing thousands of enemies. They were filled with despair. Haha, you must kill me? You are so confident. Suddenly, a faint laugh sounded in this airspace, clearly reaching everyone's ears. As soon as the voice fell, a fiery red mecha fell from the sky like a flash of lightning, and arrived at the battlefield in an instant, appearing in front of the two armies. Ah. Suzaku Mecha. It's Xia Xingchen's Suzaku Mecha. Xingchen how? He's really here. Isn't he rumored to be en route north? It's very far from the Holy Temple, and he actually caught up. A noisy discussion suddenly rang out between the two armies. The mutant mecha masters under the God's envoy hurriedly stopped flying, and hovered in the air, not daring to fly forward half a meter. There was no way. Xia Xingchen's reputation in the Chaos Star region was too fierce, and no one dared to face the Suzuki Mecha directly. Brother Xingchen, you're finally here. Edward saw the familiar figure and was excited with tears. Brother Edward, I'm not late, am I? Xia Xingchen's face appeared on the screen with a gentle smile, instantly calming people's hearts. Late? Not at all. You came in time. It's just, you are only one person. How can you stop the enemy's thousands of troops? Edward said with a trembling heart. Haha, my strength is of course limited, and it is impossible to change the entire battle situation. But I didn't come alone. Xia Xingchen chuckled, full of confidence. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In outer space, the Fiery Sun Expeditionary Force, the new Bloody Mary group, and the Blood Demon group, all the warriors came out in full force, flew out of the Star Domain arc, passed through the atmosphere, and appeared behind Xia Xingchen. 10,000 Fiery Sun Clan warriors, plus 3,000 human mecha divisions, a total of 13,000 warriors, are not many in terms of the number of troops. However, the army is well organized and well equipped. Especially the Fiery Sun Clan warriors, each of them condensed a rock armor, which was 50 meters high. In the mecha, that was generally only 10 meters high, it was like a giant, with a huge sense of oppression. Fiery Sun Clan. 10,000. Edward couldn't help but take a breath. There were also several Fiery Sun Clan warriors in his Star Pirate group, and their combat power was very fierce, far exceeding that of human mecha divisions. However, the Fiery Sun Clan was extremely rare and scattered throughout the chaotic starfield. How did Xia Xingchen find these 10,000 Fiery Sun Clan warriors? Edward was shocked. Humph, Xia Xingchen, you really came. And you brought people with you, so what? The divine messenger snorted coldly, his face full of disdain. No matter what race you are no match for my Crimson Mecha. Chapter 1242, The Power of the Complete Form. Not a match for your Crimson Mecha? God's messenger, you have profound attainments in soul cultivation. But when it comes to technology, you are illiterate. Just because you have a Crimson Mecha, you think you are invincible? I will let you see the true power of technology. Boom. As soon as Xia Xingchen finished speaking, the Suzuki Mecha turned into a stream of light and performed the skill flowing fire like light. It can be said that the speed of the Suzuki Mecha is beyond the range of the naked eye, and even instruments cannot capture it. Only a flash of light can be observed. The speed of the Azure Dragon Mecha performing traveling in the sky is fast enough even Edward, who is known for his speed, is ashamed of himself. However, the speed of the Suzuki Mecha is faster than that of the Azure Dragon Mecha. This is the advantage of the Energy Mecha. Material bodies have mass, and it is difficult to break through the speed of light. Even approaching the speed of light is difficult. Energy bodies, however, are not bound by mass, and their speed is incredibly fast, and it is even possible to exceed the speed of light. However, due to the galactic laws of the Milky Way, the speed of the Suzuki Mecha can only be infinitely close to the speed of light, and it is impossible to exceed it. A ray of fire flew into the army of Crimson Mechas. Several Crimson Mechas at the front, which looked like centipedes, suddenly exploded with a bang and turned into blood mist. The strongest Crimson Mechas were smashed to pieces without even noticing the presence of the Suzuki Mechas. The blood mist that splashed out was completely evaporated, and they were dead as hell. The Crimson Mechas had strong vitality, but under the powerful attack power of the Suzuki Mechas, they were directly destroyed, and could not play the advantage of strong vitality. Then, the Suzuki Mechas crossed the battlefield like a ray of fire, and rushed into the huge space carrier with a bang. The huge space carrier was instantly penetrated, and a violent explosion occurred. The bridge was completely destroyed, and turned into a sea of fire. Even the god's messenger in black robes was killed on the spot, and his body was burned to ashes by the flames of destruction. Fake. After Xia Xingchen killed the god's messenger, he immediately found something wrong. No matter how weak the god's messenger was, it was impossible for him to have no ability to resist. The god's envoy on the spacecraft carrier was obviously just a stand-in. The real god's envoy was on the battlefield, but was hiding in a certain starship. Every failure is a lesson. With the cunningness of the god's envoy, he had long anticipated that Xia Xingchen might come to support him and use a stand-in to attract attention. Omniscience Domain. Xia Xingchen immediately unfolded the domain, trying to find the God's Envoy's special mental power in the vast and boundless mental power fluctuations. Follow the clues, find the hidden God's Envoy from the crowd, and kill him directly. However, nothing was found. The God's Envoy is too cunning. He is good at psychic powers, changing his own mental power fluctuations to become no different from ordinary people. It is a very simple thing for him. Xia Xingchen originally planned to capture the thief first, implement the decapitation plan, and kill the God's Envoy first, but failed. It doesn't matter. War is not a simple thing. Xia Xingchen drove the Suzuki Mecha to destroy more than 3 floors of the spacecraft carrier, and rushed out from the other end, and collided head-on with hundreds of mutant mechas following behind the spacecraft carrier. Xia Xingchen was less than 10 kilometers away from the mutant mechas. He did not need to transform into energy. After he recovered his physical body, his mental power condensed a double helix flame spear burning with black flames on the right hand of the Suzuki Mecha. He held it with both hands and suddenly swept it forward. At that moment, the black flame of destruction burst out from the gun body, and the blazing sun formed a dazzling beam that penetrated the sky and the earth, shocking the world. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, the air became extremely hot, not to mention the oxygen within 10 kilometers around the Suzuki Mecha was instantly burned out, forming a large vacuum. Boom. The black flame of destruction, like a tsunami, was overwhelming and swept across the army. In an instant, dozens of mechas that could not dodge were burned, and even the people and mechas were directly vaporized, without any ability to resist. The remaining mutant mechas also dodged in panic, and were attacked by the flame of destruction, suffering varying degrees of damage. This group of mutant mechas were strong men drawn from other planets by the gods. After the evolution of the Ascension Potion, all the mutants were A-level mecha masters, or even S-level, and their combat effectiveness was very fierce. If this group of mutant mechas were put into the battlefield, even the well-trained Blood Demon group would be caught in a fierce battle. However, since they were hit by Xia Xingchen, they would naturally not let this elite mecha army escape unscathed. The Suzuki Mecha was burning with black flames all over its body, holding a flaming spear in its hand, and killing the mecha group. With a blow of the scorching sun, the entire space turned into a sea of fire, and hundreds of mechas were destroyed, and turned into fireballs, falling to the ground. Xia Xingchen, with his own strength, faced thousands of troops and horses, and killed the enemy into chaos. The mutant mecha masters were in a panic and fled everywhere, like headless flies. Not to mention the mecha battle formation. Even the most basic formation could not be maintained. After absorbing 5 energy crystals, the Suzuki Mecha has become a complete body. Not only has its rating been upgraded, but its attack power has also become even stronger. Xia Xingchen was ecstatic. In actual combat, he had truly experienced the horror of the Suzuki Mecha. Xia Xingchen, an S-class mutant officer, drove a mecha over and saw this scene with bloodshot eyes. These mutants were his subordinates, a strong army that had been trained through killing. As a result, in front of Xia Xingchen, these so-called strong armies were like livestock to be slaughtered, and were slaughtered wantonly. Are you looking for me for something? Xia Xingchen turned his head and the Suzuki Mecha flashed, crossing a distance of tens of thousands of meters, and arriving in front of the general. No, nothing. The green-skinned mutant officer was terrified and stammered. Nothing, just die. Xia Xingchen shouted, and the Suzuki Mecha burst into light. The terrifying high temperature invaded, and instantly vaporized the officer. In the public channel, there were sounds of people sucking in cold air. Such a shocking scene made many people dumbfounded and cold. Xia Xingchen, don't be so arrogant. Since you dare to show up, I dare to kill you. Come, fight me to the death. The End was the first to react, driving the Teoti Mecha over, trying to stop Xia Xingchen. The End. It's time to end our grudge. Today I will kill you. Xia Xingchen smiled coldly, looking at the End in the Teoti Mecha. Kill me. The End sneered and said contemptuously, I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Try it and you'll know. Xia Xingchen said coldly, okay, I'll give you a chance. There are too many miscellaneous soldiers here, not suitable for a decisive battle. If you have the ability, follow me. As soon as the End finished speaking, the Teoti Mecha soared into the sky and flew out of the atmosphere. The End chose the outer atmosphere as the battlefield to fight Xia Xingchen to the death. I'm not afraid of you. Xia Xingchen didn't hesitate at all. The Suzuki Mecha followed the Teoti Mecha and rushed out of the atmosphere. Chapter 1243 Fatal Weakness. Haha. Xia Xingchen. You really dare to follow me? So stupid. You have fallen into my trap. All your men are useless. Without you, they are nothing and can't stop the army of Crimson Mechas. The End, driving the Teoti Mecha, looked back at Xia Xingchen who was chasing after him and laughed out loud. The field of fear is unfolding. The abyss of fear. Fall into it, sink into it, lose yourself in the endless fear. The End's eyes were stern, and he shouted suddenly. A blood mist suddenly erupted from the body of the Teoti Mecha, covering a large area of more than 10,000 meters, swallowing Xia Xingchen who was driving the Suzuki Mecha. This is my new domain skill, the abyss of fear. Anyone who falls into my domain will be trapped in a terrifying fantasy and unable to extricate themselves. The End shouted. Xia Xingchen, no matter how strong you are just a small S-class mecha master. Facing the legend, you have no power to fight back. Huh. Xia Xingchen raised his eyebrows, and a crystal pyramid flashing with soft white light emerged, covering the Suzuki Mecha. The surging blood mist could not get close. It kept churning around the crystal pyramid, but could not penetrate into the interior. It actually blocked my domain. What kind of treasure is this crystal pyramid on you? The End was shocked and shouted. HMPH, it's none of your business. Xia Xingchen snorted coldly, frowning, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. It was obvious that he was concentrating his mental power to maintain the protection of the crystal pyramid. Although you have temporarily withstood my abyss of fear, however, it can be seen that, in order to maintain this treasure, you need to consume a lot of mental energy. Although you are not trapped in the hallucination, my goal has been achieved. The End laughed wildly. Come on. Open your eyes wide and watch it with your own eyes. Watch your friends, comrades, and subordinates die one by one at the hands of the Crimson Mecha, and are plundered of energy, and turned into mummies. This scene is more terrifying than the illusion of the abyss of fear. Ha ha ha. Xia Xingchen, I wonder how long you can hold on. Xia Xingchen was silent, and did not answer. It seemed that he was struggling to hold on. However, at the bottom of Xia Xingchen's pupils, a smile appeared that no one noticed. Xia Xingchen is trapped by the End. Great. Seeing the situation reversed, the messenger of God emerged from the cargo hold of a small starship and appeared again to command the battle. As long as Xia Xingchen is trapped, everything will be fine. The strongest of his men is only Edward. Even Edward was beaten like a dog, so the others are nothing to worry about. Crimson Mechas, obey orders, kill at will, and leave no one alive. The messenger of God ordered loudly, and issued a massacre order. Except for Xia Xingchen, he didn't take anyone seriously. The Crimson Mechas raised their heads one by one, opened their mouths wide, and a strong smell of blood came out of their mouths, and they made a low and hoarse roar. Rather than being like mechas, Crimson Mechas are more like beasts. The combination of biotechnology and mechanical technology has created a freak that has reached the pinnacle. The driver inside the Crimson Mecha only provides mental power and vitality energy. The combat part has nothing to do with the driver, but is controlled by the killing instinct of the Crimson Mecha. Lord Edward, please give an order to let your soldiers retreat temporarily. This is the order left by Lord Marquis. Xingchen said to Edward, who was shocked. Brother Xingchen's order, okay. Although Edward didn't understand the reason, he immediately did it. Edward's Mecha army had already lost all their fighting spirit after being beaten, so they were more than happy to hear the order to retreat. The Mecha divisions immediately retreated tens of thousands of meters outside the atmosphere and watched the battle under the cover of the main guns of the Starship Group. All human Mecha divisions, follow me to retreat. Tai Xiang did not stay at the forefront of the battle, but led the human Mecha divisions to retreat. At the forefront of the battle, 10,000 fiery Sun Clan warriors, like a solid great wall, blocked the roaring Crimson Mecha group. Kill. Zaka shouted, leading the way, holding a huge stone hammer in his hand, and rushed towards the Crimson Mecha. The huge hammer swept across, making a violent sound of breaking through the air, and directly smashed a Crimson Mecha into pulp. The battle started in full swing. The Crimson Mecha group and the Fiery Sun Clan God of War launched a close-range melee, and the battle was extremely fierce. Iron Bear, did Brother Xingchen really give us the order to retreat? You don't understand the performance of the Crimson Mech. This type of mech is good at plundering, and has strong vitality. It is best to hit superior forces and defeat them one by one. Once we get into a war of attrition, they will continue to plunder, and reverse the situation. Behind the front line, Edward looked at the fierce battle that broke out below, clenched his fists tightly, and his palms were full of cold sweat. Haha, Lord Edward, you are wrong. Lord Marquis has used the instruments on the Star Domain Arc to fully analyze the Crimson Mech, and its performance and combat methods have been fully mastered. Moreover, we have also found a way to defeat the Crimson Mech. Tai Xiang touched his head and grinned. These words were told to you by Lord Marquis. I, Tai Xiang, cannot say them. The method to defeat the Crimson Mech. Edward was stunned. Does the Crimson Mech have any weaknesses? Lord Marquis said that the Crimson Mech is almost perfect in terms of performance. However, it has a fatal flaw. It is a killing weapon designed for humans and human mechas. It becomes stronger when facing strong opponents. An ordinary Crimson Mech will not lose to human S-class mech masters. Under the weakening of plundering skills, it feeds on the mental power and mech energy of human mech masters, and becomes stronger and stronger as the battle goes on. Tai Xiang relayed Xia Xingchen's words. However, it is because the Crimson Mech is a special weapon for humans, and it is so perfect. Then there is a fatal weakness. The Fiery Sun Tribe. Edward was a smart man. He understood everything at once, and suddenly realized it. That's right. The Fiery Sun Tribe. The angel of God and the celestial being behind the end. They calculated everything. But they didn't expect that I would find a large number of Fiery Sun Tribe warriors. In the starry sky, Xia Xingchen raised the corner of his mouth and revealed a smile. On the Holy Temple Star, a fierce battle was going on. A sturdy bald Fiery Sun Tribe warrior, holding 2 stone axes, chopped left and right, splitting a Crimson Mecha in front of him into pieces. The blood vessels in the wound of the Crimson Mecha squirmed, condensed into dozens of blood-colored spears, and stabbed at the Fiery Sun Tribe warrior, trying to plunder his power. The speed of the blood-colored spears was too fast, like lightning, and the Fiery Sun Tribe warrior did not react. Ding. The blood-colored spear collided with the rock armor, making a sound of metal and stone, and only penetrated the rock armor less than 1 meter away. You know, the rock armor is often more than 10 meters thick. It's just a tickle. What the hell? The Fiery Sun warrior looked at it with disdain. With a stroke of his big hand, he pulled the blood-red spear off the armor like a plant root and threw it aside. Chapter 1244, taking advantage of the situation. Swish. The Crimson Mech was seriously damaged. It fought desperately, but failed to plunder the Sun Clan warriors. It ran out of energy and fell to the ground. It dried up instantly, turned into black dust, and disappeared into the air. What a broken mech, so weak. Pah. The Sun Clan warrior spat on the ground, soared into the sky, and continued to join the fierce battle. The Crimson Mech's attack power is not strong, and it is not even as good as the average heavy firepower mech. It relies on its plundering ability to suppress most human mechas. However, when facing the Sun Clan, the Crimson Mech's plundering ability is completely ineffective, and its overall performance is not even as good as that of a D-class mech. And these 10,000 Sun Clan warriors are all sturdy and powerful. If converted into the level of human mech masters, the lowest is above B level, and most of them are A level, and there are even S level strongmen. The battle situation once again showed a one-sided trend. The Crimson Mechas were no match for the Fiery Sun Expeditionary Army. They were hammered into a bloody mess by stone hammers, torn apart by stone axes, and nailed firmly to the ground by stone forks. Such a crushing battle situation was far beyond the expectations of the God's messenger. He opened his mouth wide, his face full of disbelief, his body trembling uncontrollably, and he kept muttering, "How could this happen? Why is this happening? Am I going to lose? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible." Beside the God's messenger, there were starships driven by thousands of mutants, as well as tens of thousands of mechas. The mutants on the starships and mechas were all stunned when they saw this scene. The Fiery Sun Clan. How could they be so strong? They are like demons. The Fiery Sun clan is too strong. They instantly blow up all the Crimson Mechas. We have to fight the terrifying Fiery Sun clan. God, I really don't want to die. The mutants were all terrified, watching the Fiery Sun clan show their power, and their hearts were filled with timidity. The Crimson Mechas can't hold on any longer. Everyone, attack with all your forces. The envoy went crazy. Seeing the Crimson Mechas being wiped out by the Fiery Sun clan, he didn't care about anything else, and gave the order to attack. Lord Envoy, why don't we run away? The enemy is too strong. Two mutant officers hesitated. Question me? Die. The envoy suddenly opened his golden vertical pupils, and a golden and strange light emanated from his pupils. Bang! The heads of the two mutant officers exploded like watermelons and died. Whoever dares to question me again will end up like those two idiots. Now, attack with all your forces. The envoy shouted with a ferocious face. Facing the tyranny of the envoy, the mutant mech divisions dared not speak out, and could only bite the bullet and rush towards the army of the Fiery Sun clan with the determination to die. Lord Edward, the Crimson Mechas have been completely wiped out. It's time for us to take action. Tai Xiang said. Oh, okay. Edward was still in deep shock. He thought the Sun clan would win, but he didn't expect that they would win so easily. The Crimson Mech that had made Edward so anxious and even about to lose his life was like a weak grass in front of the Sun clan, and was uprooted in an instant. Edward immediately ordered the Mech Corps to enter the range of the Holy Star again, and fight the mutant Mech division for the final battle. The brilliance of the energy beam illuminated the sky, mushroom clouds surged everywhere, and the deafening explosion filled everyone's ears. The final battle began. Outer space. The end was stunned. The Crimson Mech was so vulnerable that it was destroyed in an instant. This result was beyond his expectations. Xia Xingchen. You knew this would be the result. The end looked at Xia Xingchen. Of course. Xia Xingchen smiled, with a relaxed expression. But you are trapped by me. You can't get out. As long as I can catch you, I can threaten Edward and your men. They will also be cautious and obey me. End said. Trap me? You mean this weak domain power? Xia Xingchen smiled faintly, waved his hand lightly, and a vast mental power swept out, instantly shattering the fear abyss that End was proud of. End received a backlash of mental power, holding his head with both hands. His brain felt like it was being cut by a knife, and the pain was unbearable. Your mental power is so strong. Just now, you were sweating, and your face was pale. Are you acting? Why? Why do you want to show weakness to me? Why do you pretend to be trapped by me? End shook his head, raised his head, and looked at Xia Xingchen. Idiot. Xia Xingchen looked at him with contempt. You thought you had trapped me, but I used my trick to hold you back. Although your strength is just like that, the fear field you master is somewhat useful. Especially in large-scale battles, the fear field can affect too many people, which is stronger than my strength alone. However, you don't know how powerful you are. You have to give up your own advantages. Tell me, are you stupid? The gods are blind to have a subordinate like you. The End was scolded by Xia Xingchen, and he couldn't even say anything back. He shouted angrily, I will kill you. Clang. In an instant, the End was angry, and rushed over in the Toyota Mecha, and the battle between the two broke out instantly. The Toyota Mecha and the Suzuki Mecha collided with each other, sparks flew, and the battle was very fierce. The Toyota Mecha held a trident, and the trident was covered with bloody patterns, like a wailing skull. Die. At this moment, the End was already crazy. He knew that the god's envoy could not hold on for long. He did not want to fight with Xia Xingchen. He used the strongest means right from the start. He wanted to kill Xia Xingchen to establish his prestige and hit the enemy's morale. At this moment, the whole body of the Toyota Mecha was filled with dark red blood light, and the energy on the body surged, turning into one light ball after another, each with a diameter of 5 meters, surrounding the Toyota Mecha in the center. Swish. These light balls condensed into a ferocious armor on the Toyota Mecha, with fangs interlaced, which looked extremely terrifying. This is the final evolution of the Toyota Mecha. The whole body is covered with armor of unknown element. This unknown element can be said to be iron. It is the iron element extracted from the blood of countless people killed by the End. This element does not exist in the human periodic table, and does not even belong to the Milky Way. It is extremely hard and cannot be destroyed. I'm invulnerable and indestructible. No matter how you attack, you can't hurt the Teoti mecha. Terminator shouted. His armor was also dark red, as if bathed in human blood. His eyes were scarlet, and he was extremely crazy. Xia Xingchen tried, and the double helix spear in his hand stabbed directly, but it couldn't pierce the Teoti mecha's armor. There was only a small white dot, which quickly disappeared. This armor is really strong. My flame spear can even pierce titan alloy. Xia Xingchen's heart trembled. Chapter 1245 Battle Legend. Xia Xingchen's Suzuki mecha, known for its attack power, is a legendary second level planetary mecha, but it was unable to break through the defense of the Teoti mecha. Not even a hair was hurt. After killing thousands of people in the end, the armor of the Teoti mecha was bathed in blood, absorbed the iron element in the blood, and evolved into an unknown metal, which was extremely hard, like a thick wall, protecting the end. At this time, the Teoti mecha was filled with a strong bloody smell, and there was a faint illusion of a sea of blood and corpses, like a demon crawling out of the depths of hell, plus the hideous spikes all over the outside of the mecha. It was extremely terrifying. On the star domain arc, Li Huamei and some crew members stayed behind, watching the battle here through the screen, and everyone took a breath of cold air. The defense of the Teoti mecha was too abnormal. Even the main gun attack on the star domain arc might not be able to break the defense. Boom. Xia Xingchen was not convinced. The double helix spear in the hand of the Suzuki mecha suddenly became blazing with flames under the infusion of spiritual power. The black flame of destruction stretched for 1,000 meters. The high amount of energy was concentrated and condensed. He used all his life's learning and stabbed it out. Ding. This time, there was finally a reaction. The armor of the Teoti mecha was pierced more than half a meter, but it still did not completely penetrate the armor. The mecha itself was safe and sound. Xia Xingchen, just give up. My Teoti mecha is a gift from heaven. I don't know how many times more powerful your human technology is. You can't hurt me at all. I want to kill you, but it's easy. The End shouted loudly. Boom. The End drove the Teoti mecha, and a blood-colored longsword condensed in his hand. The strong energy fluctuations were generated when he swung it. Even the space was slightly distorted under this terrifying energy. The pure energy condensed on the longsword triggered a series of nuclear explosions. Small mushroom clouds were all over the mecha, which was extremely terrifying. Energy. Xia Xingchen immediately used energy transformation, and the Suzuki mecha turned into an energy body to avoid the attack. Boom. The blood-colored longsword released a half-moon-shaped energy blade light, which flew past the Suzuki mecha, and flew towards the direction of the Holy Temple Star. The clouds were cut open by a line, like an ugly scar. Finally, the energy blade light fell to the ground, causing an explosion on the surface of the Holy Temple Star. The earth shook, the fire was raging, and a huge rift appeared. The attack of the End caused the soldiers on both sides of the battlefield to be slightly stunned. The high energy detectors beeped wildly, and issued a high energy alarm. Everyone couldn't help but gasp, and the mecha masters all changed their colors. No one thought that the End and his Teoti mecha could be so strong. As expected of a legendary mecha master, with just a wave of his hand, he has the power to shake the planet. A legendary mecha master can rival a million soldiers. This statement is indeed not just a casual remark. A legendary mecha master has great power and can use the power of the planet. It is too terrifying. Countless people were shocked and lamented the powerful power of the legendary mecha master. The mutant mecha master was extremely excited, while the human mecha master and the Liang warriors frowned. Or thought came to their minds, the End is too terrifying, and even Xia Xingchen may not be his opponent. Boom. The Teoti mecha held a blood-colored longsword, and a strong blood light appeared on the armor. The mecha transmitted violent energy fluctuations all over its body, and continuously attacked the Suzuki mecha. The energy blade broke through the air, shining brightly, and the energy collided. The space was constantly distorted, and even about to shatter. At this moment, the shadow of the planet appeared faintly above the head of the End. The power of the planet. The spiritual power of the End is extremely concentrated, and the spiritual power planet in the mind begins to slowly materialize, floating above the head, absorbing the spiritual energy in the universe, constantly replenishing its own deficiencies. This is the horror of the legendary Mecha Master. One person's power is small, the spiritual power is limited, and continuous fighting will always lead to a lack of spiritual power. However, the legendary Mecha Master can exert the power of the planet and use the phantom of the planet condensed in the mind as a bridge to absorb the spiritual energy in the universe in the battle to make up for himself. The spiritual power is almost endless and impossible to be exhausted. This is the horror of the legendary Mecha Master. If the gap between the mechas is not too big, the legendary Mecha Master can easily crush the S-class Mecha Master. Xia Xingchen felt that he was not facing a human being, but an enemy of a planet or even the entire universe, and the pressure was enormous. Moreover, the spiral spear in Xia Xingchen's hand could not break through the defense of the Teoti Mecha. He attacked the same position hundreds of times, and could not break through the defense of the Teoti Mecha. Xia Xingchen, you roam the starry seas, and you are a demon that everyone fears. The Galactic Empire has offered a high reward for your arrest, but it can do nothing about you. However, you are no match for me at all. No matter how hard you struggle, it's all in vain. In my eyes, you are no different from a dead man. I will kill you, and use your head to gain Qin Yun's trust. Then, I will lead my master's robot army to break through Shinyuan Star, destroy the Empire, and slaughter all mankind. The End laughed wildly at the sky. His eyes were extremely crazy. Swish. Xia Xingchen's eyes were stern, and the flame spear in the hands of the Suzuki Mecha dissipated instantly, facing the Teoti Mecha with bare hands. Physical attack, it's really ineffective. Xia Xingchen shook his head and said contemptuously, it's a pity that I want to kill you. It's easy. The Suzuki Mecha exuded a dazzling light all over its body, and the energy was boiling. When the energy reached a peak, the entire mecha turned into pure energy, like a scorching sun, which made people unable to look directly at it. Boom boom boom. Countless golden mushroom clouds emerged around the Suzuki Mecha. This was because the energy was so dense that it triggered a nuclear explosion. Shock waves surged out from the Suzuki Mecha, and the aura was terrifying. Even the people on the star domain arc were affected, and felt the huge hull of the 10,000 meter long ship vibrating slightly. Flame of destruction. The Suzuki Mecha turned into a burning golden flame, drawing a brilliant trajectory under the black background of the universe, and bursting out a brilliant light that illuminated the starry sky. The flame of destruction evolved to its peak, not the original black, but gold. Everyone who saw this golden light changed color, with horror on their faces. What is this? The energy detectors of the star domain arc cannot detect the specific energy index of the Suzuki Mecha at this moment. Li Huama's pretty face was full of astonishment. Ah. Why is there another sun in the sky? There should only be one star near the holy temple. It's so hot. So bright. It's like a supernova explosion. The Mecha masters of both sides who were fighting on the surface of the holy temple couldn't help but look up, looking at the dazzling sun that had just appeared in the sky, and exclaimed in shock. Anyone could feel the strong energy fluctuations coming from the sky. With a fascinating and blazing breath, the Suzuki Mecha was like a new sun, with surging energy that made people suffocate. Boom. The Suzuki Mecha turned into a ball of fire and collided with the Teoti Mecha, hitting the surface of the hideous armor with countless spider web patterns, almost breaking. Chapter 1246 The End of Fall. How is it possible? My Teoti Mecha's defense was breached. End was in disbelief. The technology of his Teoti Mech had surpassed countless human eras. The metal used to build the mech was not even in the human periodic table, and was 4 to 5 grades higher than Titan alloy. He thought that he was invincible in the top existence in the legendary class. How could he have expected that Xia Xingchen, a mere S-class mech master, could blast open the defense of the Teoti Mech? The physical defense of the Teoti Mech is invincible. However, my Suzuki Mech can transform into pure energy, pass through the armor, and directly attack the core of the body. Xia Xingchen smiled coldly, and the Suzuki Mech turned into countless golden rays of light, attacking the Teoti Mech from countless angles. Bang! End reacted quickly, and the blood-colored longsword in his hand kept waving to block the attack of the Suzuki Mech. However, Xia Xingchen's attack was like sunlight. No matter how fast the sword dances, how can it block the sunlight? Boom. The flames of destruction rushed forward, the energy penetrated passed through the heavy armor of the Teoti mecha, and directly hit the cockpit. The end was hit, the armor on his body cracked, and even showed signs of melting under the high temperature. The scarlet light in his eyes flickered, and he was severely injured. That is the end. He transformed his whole body into a machine, leaving only the brain, and even removed the heart, and replaced it with a high-energy nuclear reactor. If it were a human body, it would have been completely vaporized and burned to ashes by the flames of destruction. The end roared. He knew he would lose. He was unwilling, and filled with anger. I won't accept this. What kind of mecha do you have? It can actually be quantified. It's too abnormal. I worked so hard, and slaughtered countless people before the Teoti mecha evolved. But I'm still no match for you. It's all my fault for not giving me higher technology. Otherwise, I can kill you with one blow. Before dying, End roared in grief and anger. Humph, higher technology can kill me? Xia Xingchen shouted coldly. Do you know what the biggest difference between you and me is? Technology is powerful, but what's important is yourself. Only when you have strong abilities can you control technology. Otherwise, no matter how powerful the technology is, you will only be dominated by it, lose yourself, and become a slave to technology. No, it's not that I lost to you, it's that your technology is better than mine. If we can exchange mechas, I will. And still refuse to accept. Forget it. You are stubborn and stubborn. Talking to people like you is like talking to a cow. You have killed so many people and done so many bad things. You deserve to die. On the planet below, the battle was still going on. People died every second. Xia Xingchen didn't want to waste time arguing with the end. He shouted, "Destruction flame spiral." Swish. The Suzuki mecha turned into a huge golden drill, flashing with golden light, and rushed towards the Teoti mecha. The golden drill directly passed through the body of the Teoti mecha, and the high temperature directly vaporized the body of the end. This evil star pirate overlord turned into ashes, and disappeared from the universe forever. The Teoti mecha lost its driver and stopped moving. The scarlet light on its body faded, and the hideous armor on the outside also disappeared. I finally killed End. He is the first legendary mecha master I have truly defeated. Although End's Teoti mecha is powerful, he has just broken through to the legend level, which is the nebula level. If it is the planetary level, I'm definitely not his opponent. What a luck. Xia Xingchen was very excited. He could kill a legend at the S level, and there is no second person in the entire galaxy. This is a record that can be recorded in history. If this record is spread, it will definitely shake the entire starry sky. The Teoti mecha is still unharmed. After Xia Xingchen's omniscience field explored, his heart tightened. The defense of this Teoti mecha is really amazing, far beyond Xia Xingchen's imagination. It can be said that except for the energy attack of the Suzuki mecha, all the attack methods that Xia Xingchen can imagine are ineffective against the Teoti mecha. I once got the wreckage of a Teoti mecha, which could not be restored with the technology of the Star Arc. This time, I can get a complete Teoti mecha, and maybe I can analyze some technology from it. Xia Xingchen was delighted. With a wave of his hand, his mental power swept over, and put the unmanned Teoti mecha into his personal space, ready to take it back to the Star Arc for a search. Even if I can't analyze the Teoti mecha, just getting this mecha with extremely high technological content and amazing defense is also a huge gain. Xia Xingchen drove the Suzuki mecha towards the Holy Temple without any pause, and instantly passed through the atmosphere and entered the battlefield. On the battlefield of the Holy Temple, thousands of mechas were fighting. The explosions were deafening, the flashes of laser beams illuminated the sky, the smoke was filled, and the ground was full of burning mecha wreckage and fragmented drivers. The situation of the war was one-sided, and Edward and Xia Xingchen's army had an absolute advantage. The Crimson Mechas were completely destroyed by the Fiery Sun Expeditionary Force. The army of the God's Envoy could only rely on the firepower support of the starship and the large number of mutants who risked their lives to delay time. Defeat was already doomed. The God's Envoy was just fighting back. Kill. Kill with all your might. Even if you die, you must take someone with you. The face of the God's Envoy was ferocious, and he yelled in the command cabin of the starship. His expression was already crazy. Yes, sir. None of the mutant mech masters were willing to die in vain. However, their lives were in the hands of the god's envoy. Advancing would mean death, and retreating would also mean death. It would be better to fight desperately. Perhaps there would be a glimmer of hope. Kill. It's a dead end anyway, so it's better to fight desperately. Anyway, I'm going to die. Even if I explode, I'll drag you to death with me. The mutant mech masters were all crazy and fearless, and some even detonated their mechas, which turned into mushroom clouds in midair, and the explosion swallowed up 4 human mechas that were unable to dodge. Lord Edward, my team has been wiped out. The mutants are crazy. I can't hold on any longer. Oh my god. A bunch of lunatics. The captains of the Jackdaw Star pirates kept sending distress signals to Edward. Hold on. Hold on. The enemy is about to lose the battle. This is a desperate move. Edward yelled. He saw the names of the mecha divisions on the screen turn from green to red, indicating that the mecha divisions were killed. His heart was bleeding. These people were all brothers who had fought with Edward. However, war is cruel, and some people must die. Brothers, I will avenge you. I will definitely kill the messenger of God. Edward held the joystick tightly and swore secretly. Yes, sir. Boss. We will fight too. We are not cowards. Mutants, I will fight you. At this moment, the people of the Jackdaw Star pirates were all excited and shouted loudly, launching a death charge towards the mutant mecha army. Whoosh. The Suzuki mecha fell from the sky and landed in front of the 2 armies. I'm Xia Xingchen. The end has been killed by me. Messenger of God, I order you to surrender immediately and do not let your men make unnecessary sacrifices. Xia Xingchen's voice was not loud, but it rang in the ears of everyone present. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1247, Rebellion. The Terminator is dead. Even the legendary Terminator died in Xia Xingchen's hands. Galaxy. Is Xia Xingchen the reincarnation of the devil? We are enemies with him. How can we survive? The mutant mecha masters all turned pale, lost their will to fight, and temporarily stopped attacking. Stupid. Do you think that if you surrender, Xia Xingchen will let you go? Don't you look at your current appearance? Ugly. In the eyes of humans, you are all aliens. Although the universe is big, there is no place for you. You and I are grasshoppers on the same line now. We can only fight to the death. Even if we die, it will be glorious. The messenger of God saw that his men wanted to surrender and shouted hurriedly, yes, we are no longer human. There is no point in surrendering. Let's fight. We are going to die anyway. If we can die at the hands of a strong man like Xia Xingchen, we can die without regrets. The mutant mecha masters saw their own ugly appearance in the reflection of the screen, and they were all heartbroken. Some of the weak-willed ones even shed tears secretly. Some strong ones were free and easy, ready to put their lives aside and die gloriously in battle. Everyone, even ants, try to survive. I believe that none of you really want to die. You should think about who turned you into what you are now, and who is the culprit. That's right, it was the despicable messenger of God who caused all this. He used his powerful power to seduce you, deceive you, and made you take the ascension potion, which made you fall into the current situation. But I know that, although your appearance has changed, you are still human in your heart. As long as you think of yourself as human, I, Xia Xingchen, promise you that I will never discriminate against you because of your appearance. You are still my compatriots. As long as you are willing to surrender, I will strictly abide by the laws of the Empire and treat prisoners of war well. After the war is over, I will restore your freedom. I can even give you a planet, so that you can reproduce on the planet. Xia Xingchen said loudly. Don't kill us. Give us freedom. Even give us a planet. The mutants were stunned and outed their ears. Galaxy, I swear on the personality of Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen raised his right hand, put his index finger and middle finger together, and cursed and swore. Although Xia Xingchen is a demon who kills without blinking an eye, it is said that he is very trustworthy and keeps his word. He will never break his promise. Xingchen Hao is not a villain. It's just that his methods are too cruel. I believe what Xia Xingchen says. The determination of many mutants has begun to waver, and they have the idea of surrendering again. Don't believe Xia Xingchen. He is a complete villain. Everyone in the Northern Empire knows that he is a cunning liar. Seeing that the situation was not good, the envoy of God quickly used his psychic power to influence the emotions of the mutants and shouted loudly at the same time. The envoy of God's psychic power is extremely terrifying, but it can only control a few people, at most a dozen people. Facing tens of thousands of mecha masters, he can only influence the emotions of the crowd. The unconsciousness of the group can influence emotions, and the envoy of God can influence their judgment. Xia Xingchen did not refute, but waved his hand, and the blood demon behind him immediately understood, and flew to the front of the two armies in the Zhuang Mecha. In the cockpit, in addition to blood demon, there was another mutant. This mutant was tall, and covered with black hair. He was a werewolf. He was wearing an officer's uniform, and had no shackles on him. He was obviously free. Ah, it's Buck. It's really Buck. He is a senior officer on Rutan 4th. Rutan fell, but he didn't die. Buck had a high status among the mutants, and was immediately recognized. Ahem. Fellows, you should know the character of Buck. Every word Xia Xingchen said is true. Not only me, but all the mutant soldiers on Rutan 4th who are willing to surrender, will be treated as prisoners of war. In addition to the restriction of personal freedom, they are well fed and well dressed, and the living facilities are complete. As long as the war is over, the Marquis will restore our freedom and let us go home. Buck coughed, cleared his throat, and spoke to the microphone in front of him. Buck, you traitor. I treated you well, but you betrayed me, and became Xia Xingchen's running dog. And you are still spreading lies to confuse the people. You die. Everyone is watching. This is the fate of betraying me. The envoy of God was furious, trembling all over, and shouted. His golden vertical pupils bulged, golden light radiated, trying to trigger the mind mark in Buck's brain. However, Buck was still fine, not affected at all. My mind mark unexpectedly failed. Xia Xingchen, you actually found someone to crack my mind mark. The envoy of God was panicked, his face distorted. If I can find someone to break your mind mark once, I can break it a second time. What's so strange about this? Xia Xingchen smiled coldly. He had asked Qin Jaina's personal bodyguard Yang Bichen to remove the mind mark on Buck a long time ago. Otherwise, how could he dare to let Buck rebel against the mutant mecha division in front of the envoy of God? It's useless. Even if the mental imprint is broken, they can't escape my control. All mutants, listen to me. If I don't give you the gene stabilizer regularly, your genes will collapse and turn into a pool of thick water. I don't need to say how painful the gene collapse is. I advise you. The envoy tore off the last veil, revealing his fierce face, and began to threaten nakedly. Yes. Without the gene stabilizer, we will collapse and die miserably. That's too miserable to die. I don't want to try it. I'd rather die on the battlefield. Alas. I want to surrender and go home. Unfortunately, it's too late. The mutant mecha master's eyes dimmed and his expression was dejected. Emissary, isn't it just a gene stabilizer? Xia Xingchen was well prepared and confident. He raised his hand and signaled to the blood demon again. Blood demon immediately took out a test tube filled with green liquid and handed it to Buck, whispering, drink it. This is the latest research result of Dr. Kang Yap, and it is a reward from the Marquis. Really given to me. That's great. Buck was stunned for a moment, and then he was ecstatic. He took the test tube respectfully with both hands, and couldn't wait to unscrew the test tube, and swallowed the green liquid inside. Buck frowned. The taste of this reagent was not very good. It was sour and bitter, and almost made him vomit. After Buck used the ascension potion, his whole body was covered with a layer of black hair, even on his face, and there were fangs in his mouth, like a legendary werewolf. The gene stabilization reagent newly developed by Dr. Kanya had an immediate effect. The black hair on Buck's face fell off instantly, and his teeth slowly retracted, turning into his original human appearance, a very handsome white man. My face is restored? Buck held the mirror in his hand, unbelievable, and finally burst into tears of joy. A grown man actually cried bitterly. It's just a temporary recovery. Blood demon whispered, gene changes are irreversible. If you force the change, there is a high possibility that your genes will collapse and you will die. Dr. Kanya's potion can only temporarily suppress the beast genes in your body. But if you take it regularly, it can stabilize your human appearance. Chapter 1248 The End of God's Messenger. For the time being, even if it's just for the time being, it's enough. In this way, I can go home, see my wife, and hug my newborn baby. Buck's face was covered with tears. He was once confused by power and lost himself. It was not until now that he realized how important his appearance, which he originally cared least about, was. My Lord Marquis, you have given me a new life. I, Buck, am willing to follow you until the end of the universe. Buck stood up and bowed deeply to Xia Xingchen. Well, Buck, wait until the war is over and you see your wife and children. Then talk about following me. In comparison, they need you more. A wife cannot live without a husband, and a child cannot live without a father. Xia Xingchen nodded gently and smiled. Thank you, my Lord Marquis. Buck knelt down on the spot. He was in awe of Xia Xingchen's personality charm. Drive Kanga's new stabilizer. Can it restore our appearance to human? Oh my god. As long as our genes don't collapse, we won't be controlled by the despicable dog thief of the god's envoy. Surrender. Definitely surrender. Not surrendering is a fool. Yes, I surrender too. Witnessing the effect of the new gene stabilizer with their own eyes, the mutant mecha masters were like a pot of boiling water, raising their hands one after another to express their surrender. Most of the mutant mecha masters were space pirates, unruly and yearning for freedom. They were deceived by the god's envoy and turned into ugly monsters, and they were already dissatisfied in their hearts. However, due to the side effects of the ascension potion, their lives were tightly grasped in the hands of the god's envoy, and it was impossible to resist. However, Xia Xingchen took out a new gene stabilizer and solved their worries, so they surrendered one after another. That old thing Kangaya. He didn't die. And he betrayed me. The face of the god's envoy was distorted, and his left hand covered his chest, as if he had been hit hard by someone. In fact, Dr. Kanga had already developed a new gene stabilizer and reported it to the god's envoy. As a result, he was severely reprimanded by the god's envoy and was sent from the headquarters to the underground research institute on the planet Rutenforth. The god's envoy does not need the mutants to return to human appearance. It is best that the mutants are hideous, ferocious, and different from humans. Over time, even the mutants will feel that they are aliens, and will hate humans, and kill their former compatriots crazily without any guilt. Unfortunately, the god's envoy's idea is wonderful, but the reality is cruel. He never expected that Dr. Kanya was not dead, and gave the formula of the new gene stabilizer to Xia Xingchen. Seeing that the number of mutant mecha masters surrendering increased, from dozens to hundreds, and even thousands of them surrendered together, the god's envoy's heart was beating. No surrender. Whoever betrays me will die. The god's envoy went crazy, and a light flashed on the ring on his finger. It was a space ring. A huge mecha with a height of 20 meters appeared in front of him. He jumped up, and a missile flew out from the center of his palm, blowing the two mutant mecha masters in front of him into fireballs. However, it was too late. Even killing could not reverse the disadvantage of the god's messenger. The more he killed crazily, the more panicked the mutants became. They surrendered one after another and drove their mechas away from the god's messenger. In the blink of an eye, the god's messenger became a lonely man. All the mechas and starships within a radius of 10 kilometers avoided him, forming a vacuum zone. Deserted by everyone. I, the great god's messenger. A person with psychic powers. What I'm best at is manipulating people's hearts. Even the huge galactic empire was turned upside down by me alone. Even the emperor died in my conspiracy. How could I be deserted by everyone? In the cockpit of the mecha, the snake face of the god's messenger was extremely pale, and the golden vertical pupils were dim. God's messenger, your fate is destined to be like this. You manipulate people's hearts, and play with people's hearts. The final result is that you will be betrayed and spurned by people. Xia Xingchen flew over in the Suzuki mecha and said coldly, stop the meaningless killing. Come on, fight me like a warrior. I will give you the glory of a warrior. Xia Xingchen, you are really arrogant. Do you think you have won me? The god's messenger was overjoyed when he saw Xia Xingchen approaching. His golden vertical pupils suddenly burst into golden light and exerted mental control. As long as he could control Xia Xingchen, the situation would be reversed immediately. Stubborn. Get out. Xia Xingchen shouted, and a strong mental force fluctuation burst out from his body. Boom. The mental shock released by the god's messenger with all his strength was instantly shattered, and he himself was also backfired, spitting blood and looking miserable. Your mental power, why is it so strong? The envoy of God was surprised and looked at Xia Xingchen with incredible eyes. I remember very clearly, when I first saw you, you were just a tiny insect. I could crush it to death with just one finger. But now, your mental power is vast and boundless. I don't bother to talk nonsense with you. Xia Xingchen completely hated the envoy of God. The envoy of God was the culprit who provoked the war between the Empire and the North. If it weren't for him, Nicholas's army would have been completely destroyed in the Battle of Siberia. If it weren't for him, Kinjana wouldn't have killed her brother. Xia Xingchen wouldn't have fled to the chaotic starfield with Kinjana, being hunted down, and in a state of panic all day long. Everything was because of the ugly man in front of him with a face like a snake, and wearing a black robe. His heart was as ugly and vicious as his face. Thinking of the past, Xia Xingchen was filled with anger and could no longer hold back. The Suzuki mecha rushed forward and punched it. With a bang, the mecha of the god's mechanic was pierced by the fist, revealing the line inside which was constantly flashing with blue fire. Bang! The attack of the Suzuki mecha did not end. It rushed forward and punched again. With a bang, it hit the cheek of the god's mechanic. The god's mechanic was not good at operating the mecha, and its combat power was not even as good as the end. He hurriedly crossed his hands to block the fist of the Suzuki mecha. Bang! The attack power of the Suzuki mecha was so strong and terrifying. With one punch, the arms of the god's mechanic burst, and even one arm was blown away directly, and the whole mecha flew out. In the cockpit of the mecha, the god's mechanic was hit by the strong impact, and his body was covered with blood. He was in a very bad state and almost fainted. This is the retribution you deserve. Xia Xingchen's chest rose and fell violently, and his breathing was heavy. He was really too angry. Xia Xingchen was afraid that he would be too angry and kill the envoy with one blow. That would be too easy for him. Xia Xingchen had to beat the envoy to death with one punch to calm his anger and do justice to the souls of those who died at the hands of the envoy. Xia Xingchen, keep fighting. Keep fighting. The face of the envoy was covered in blood. One of his eyes was pierced by broken glass and was bleeding. He was blind. The other golden vertical pupil was full of madness. Do you really think you have won? You can kill me. But, let me tell you, I'm just an abandoned pawn now. Abandoned by the gods, a ridiculous, pathetic, and lamentable abandoned pawn. Do you know who the new envoy is? I'm not afraid to tell you this top secret information. It is your nemesis Andre. He is now wearing my black robe and becoming the new envoy of God. He is leading the Empire's army of starships to attack your Jiaozi organization. Ha ha ha, how long can the small Longton star hold off Andre? Your comrades in arms died in his hands one by one. I wonder if you can still be as rampant as you are now. Chapter 1249, the celestial being appears. Andre, isn't he dead? Xia Xingchen's body and mind were shaken. He suddenly stopped attacking and looked at the messenger of God with a gloomy expression. The messenger of God was covered in blood and laughed wildly. Yes, Andre is dead. However, under the prayer of Emperor Nicholas the Great, the gods took Andre's body away and resurrected him with super technology. Now, he has returned and has become the new messenger of God. The technology of the gods can even revive the dead. It's too scary. Xia Xingchen's face showed an irrepressible shock. HMPH, the gods are omnipotent. Not to mention resurrecting a dead human. It's not difficult to destroy the Milky Way with just a wave of the hand. The envoy snorted coldly. I have the mechanical gods behind me, and this mecha is a gift from them. Xia Xingchen, if you know what's good for you, kneel down in front of me. For the sake of our acquaintance, I will take you as my servant. Say a few good words in front of the gods, and I will spare your life. God's envoy, you are really crazy. Even in this situation, you are still talking nonsense. So what if Andre is resurrected? I can kill him once, and I can kill him a second time. Xia Xingchen looked at the envoy coldly. Am I crazy? I didn't want to use this instrument, but, to kill you. I can't care. The envoy looked crazy, and his hands suddenly pressed on a red button on the dashboard, and his mental power was madly infused. Master, avenge me. The envoy's 7 orifices were bleeding, his mental power was overdrawn, and his brain exploded and died. Before he died, he screamed desperately. It's no use calling the master. The celestial beings cannot cross the galaxy barrier of the Milky Way. This is a protective measure left by ancient humans for their descendants. Otherwise, humans would have been destroyed by the celestial beings long ago. Xia Xingchen said. The god's mechanic was dead, and blood was all over the cockpit of the mecha. Just when Xia Xingchen thought everything was over, the god's mechanic in front of him suddenly moved. Alarm! Alarm! High energy reaction detected. The high energy detectors of all mechas and starships observed the horrible high energy reaction from the god's mechanic at this moment. Bang! The energy value was too high, exceeding the load of the high energy detectors, causing the detectors to explode one by one, and flames flew. What's going on? A high energy reaction came from the mecha. Xia Xingchen was stunned, watching the god's mechanic in front of him emitting amazing energy fluctuations, with a terrifying breath, and golden light coming out of the body of the mecha, which was extremely dazzling. The energy fluctuations were repeatedly agitated, and the energy index continued to rise. The damaged god's mechanic emitted light, and the injured body recovered in the blink of an eye. Boom. There was a roar from inside the god mech, the sound of the engine restarting. A powerful energy wave exploded, a hurricane swept across, the mountain exploded, and all the matter within 100 kilometers around the mech was shattered. Huge pits appeared on the ground, and particles flew everywhere. Even Xia Xingchen was blown away with the Suzuki mech, and flew 100 kilometers away. Something's wrong. Xia Xingchen barely controlled the Suzuki mech to keep a steady figure, and his face changed drastically. He felt a strong sense of danger, and the space was filled with inexplicable energy fluctuations. This energy fluctuation was very terrifying, beyond the limits of human technology. The god mech was like the supreme god, looking down at humans, as if looking at a group of ants. Boom. With the god mech as the center, another big explosion occurred. All the surrounding mountains were razed to the ground by the shockwave. The god mech slowly flew out of the light, emitting golden light, like a god. What's going on? What happened? Why is the mecha of the god's mech suddenly so powerful? Legend. No, it's beyond legend. On the holy planet, the humans and mutant mecha masters were terrified when they saw this amazing scene, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble. Who are you? Xia Xingchen asked coldly from a distance. He already had the answer in his mind, but the answer was too shocking, and he couldn't believe it. Catcher. Catcher. You actually communicate through sound waves. It's really primitive. A deep male voice came from the mecha of the god's mech. The voice was not bad, with magnetism, but there was no emotion at all, cold as ice, and it made people shudder. Xia Xingchen, we finally meet. Names have no meaning to us mechas. If you must call me, you can call me Mecha King Kong. Of course, this is just an insignificant code name. A voice came from the mecha of the god's mech. Mechas, you are a celestial being. Xia Xingchen had guessed it long ago, but he was still shocked when Mecha King Kong said it himself. The celestial being personally descended into the Milky Way. Xia Xingchen faced a real celestial being for the first time. Just like all lower life forms facing higher life forms, Xia Xingchen felt extremely humble. Humans are not even as good as bugs in front of the celestial beings. They are tiny cosmic dust. That's right, I'm the celestial being Mecha King Kong of the mechanical clan. Xia Xingchen, you are just a human being, but you killed my 2 agents, and ruined my plan. Your sin is unforgivable. However, I, Mecha King Kong, am magnanimous and still choose to forgive you. You only need to submit to me, kneel before me and worship, and promise to become the sharp blade in my hand. After getting what I want, I will grant you the title of the King of Mankind. Mecha King Kong's voice was cold, and without any emotion. Let me submit to you? Let me be the king? Sorry, I have no interest in it. But you, the celestial being of the mechanical clan, you actually broke into the Milky Way without permission. Aren't you afraid of the accusations of the Celestial Council? Xia Xingchen shouted sternly. He only learned about the existence of the Celestial Council from his master Roger. He actually didn't know how powerful the Celestial Council was. He just said this casually, hoping to scare the Celestial King Khan. The Council of Celestial Beings? You, a tiny human, actually know about the Council of Celestial Beings? Mechanical King Khan was slightly stunned and said. Xia Xingchen was secretly happy in his heart. He didn't expect that he had guessed it right. Even if it was a celestial being, it was impossible to act recklessly. It had to abide by the rules of the Council of Celestial Beings, and could not easily cross them. Since you know about the Council of Celestial Beings, then I can't let you go to inform on them. I don't want you as a servant anymore. Everyone present today must die. As soon as the voice of Mechanical King Khan fell, he suddenly made a move. A huge explosion appeared behind him. The speed broke through the sound barrier and rushed towards the Suzuki Mecha. Boom. Mechanical King Khan collided with Xia Xingchen and directly opened up all the energy, using the most terrible means, trying to kill Xia Xingchen instantly. This energy. I can actually withstand it. Xia Xingchen was slightly stunned. Although the means of the celestial beings were strong, they were not completely unmatched as he imagined. The strength should be around the legendary second planetary level, much stronger than the end. Chapter 1250, Confronting the Heavenly Beings. The other party is not the real body of a celestial being. Xia Xingchen's heart moved, and he understood immediately. With the galaxy barrier of the Milky Way, it is impossible for a celestial being to really cross the barrier and enter the Milky Way. This is not because of the ban of the Celestial Council. Even the celestial being does not have the strength to cross the galaxy barrier left by ancient humans. However, this does not mean that the celestial being cannot interfere with the Milky Way. There are several ways for a celestial being to enter the Milky Way. One is to reduce the energy level in the body, to reach the strength that can cross the galaxy barrier and descend in the real body. However, this method is very dangerous, and ordinary celestial beings will not pay such a huge price. The second is projection. The celestial being of the Elder descended in Nicholas Palace, which was a projection. It was not a real body, but a virtual image, and its strength was much weaker than the real body. Even if it was a projection, it would cost a celestial being a huge price. The method used by the Mechanical King Khan is obviously similar to projection. It's just that the projection principle is different from that of the Elder. The Elder use mental power, while the mechanical race uses ultra-long distance data energy transmission. Before the death of the God's Envoy, he burned all his mental power and poured it into the red button in order to create a space-time beacon for the Mechanical Clan celestial being, so that the Mechanical King Khan could accurately locate it, cross endless space and time, and kill Xia Xingchen. The Mechanical King Khan's true body is still outside the Milky Way, and the long-distance force transmission of energy has a huge loss, which makes his energy level at the planetary level not too abnormal. We can win. Xia Xingchen was delighted, and the Suzuki Mecha turned into an energy body, flew out of the atmosphere, bathed in the light of the stars, and continuously absorbed solar energy. The energy fluctuations in the solar furnace were also rising steadily, and the surface of the Mecha burned with golden flames, like a blazing sun in the sky. On the other side, the celestial being Mechanical King Khan increased the intensity of energy transmission, and the vast energy came like a long river across endless space and time, focusing on the body of the God's Envoy Mecha, and the whole body was emitting golden light, which was extremely dazzling. Boom. The two mechas collided with each other, the sky collapsed, and the earth cracked, like a supernova explosion, shining with light, and vortex-shaped shockwave spread far into the depths of the starry sky, and the entire holy temple was shaking. Their attack alone created a terrifying scene. The clouds on the surface of the planet were blown away, the ground was affected by the scattered energy, and the soil and rocks rolled like waves, spreading layer by layer of ripples. Xia Xingchen defeated the legendary End. With the performance bonus of the Suzuki Mecha, his strength is comparable to the legend, and he can even fight the Mecha King Khan. The fierce battle between the two legendary Mecha masters erupted with unparalleled energy, which is rare in the entire galaxy, as if the end of the world has come. No. The energy of the Mechanical King Khan is still rising. His energy is getting stronger and stronger, and has surpassed the planetary level, and reached the stellar level. The power of a Suzuki Mecha is unmatched. Xia Xingchen felt a terrifying energy coming from the other side and knew that he was no match for him. Qinglang Mecha. Mental clone. Xia Xingchen shouted in a low voice, very decisively, took out his second mecha from the portable space, and condensed the mental clone to drive the Qinglang Mecha. In the starry sky, two mechas, one red and one blue, appeared, turned into two rays of light, and fought fiercely with a mechanical King Kong with two enemies. This is Xia Xingchen's peak combat power. The Qinglang Mecha and the Suzuki Mecha, one defending and one attacking, cooperated perfectly, and finally gradually equalized the disadvantage. One person drives two mechas at the same time. Although his mental power is divided into two mechas, it is considered a weakening. However, the energy of the two mechas is added together, and the instantaneous energy output is not weaker than mine. The mechanical King Kong's eyes were straight, and he felt the vast energy coming from the two mechas, and he was amazed in his heart. Although the mental clone can drive two mechas at the same time, but the weakness is also obvious, and Xia Xingchen's mental power is also weakened to half of the original. If there is a master who is good at mental attack, such as the spirit race, directly use mental shock, it can make Xia Xingchen mentally collapse and become a madman. However, the mechanical race has no mental power. For the mechanical race, energy is everything. As long as the energy is high enough, everything can be destroyed. But Xia Xingchen's two mechas, one with the heart of thunder and the other with the solar furnace, have energy output that is not inferior to that of the mechanical King Kong. I don't accept it. Humans like insects can actually fight me to a draw. The loss of energy in the long distance force transmission is too great. I can't even exert 1,000th of my strength. Otherwise, I will directly turn this galaxy into dust. The mechanical King Kong roared angrily, and at any cost, he increased the energy output again. Boom. The three mechas collided in the starry sky, and a violent energy explosion occurred. The light was extremely dazzling. At this moment, the mechanical King Kong clearly felt that the opponent's energy was not inferior to his own, and it was too difficult to win head-on. If you can't win head-on, attack from the side. The mechanical King Kong's eyes turned. He had mastered a lot of technology, and any technology could make Xia Xingchen overwhelmed. Human mechas use optical computers to assist. I will release the virus program to control the optical computers. Mechanical King Kong quietly released the virus, trying to control the optical computers of the two mechas, Suzuki and Qinglang. The technology of the mechanical race is so powerful that the optical computers of the two mechas crashed instantly. Xia Xingchen, you have lost the optical computer assistance, and your combat effectiveness should be greatly reduced. Fortunately, the optical computer level of your human mechas is too low, otherwise I would have directly issued a self-destruction order and you would have died without me even having to do it. Mechanical King Kong sneered. However, what Mechanical King Kong did not expect was that the crash of the mecha optical computer did not affect Xia Xingchen's combat effectiveness at all. He manually operated the two mechas, and the attack frequency did not decrease at all, and was even more precise than before. The control of energy was also more exquisite, and the combat effectiveness did not decrease, but increased by 3%. How is it possible? Mechanical King Kong couldn't understand that everything in their mechanical race would be handled by computers. Of course, they themselves are supercomputers. Humans also have optical computers, and the computing speed is much faster than that of human brains. Why don't they leave the battle completely to the optical computer and choose to manually operate the mecha to fight? Whether it's an optical brain or a mecha, they are just auxiliary tools. Scientists have imagined super intelligent mechas before. But to put it bluntly, aren't super intelligent mechas just robots? Too many people have died after countless intelligent awakenings. We humans are still used to taking our fate into our own hands. Xia Xingchen's attack became more and more crazy, and the Qinglang mecha switched from defense to offense, attacking crazily. Damn it. I can't compete with energy, and I'm not afraid of viruses. This human named Xia Xingchen is really tricky. No wonder my two agents died in his hands. Mechanical King Kong hated in his heart. He really underestimated humans before. Super distance force transmission. Not only energy loss, but also data transmission delay. Mechanical King Kong was just a little distracted, and the god mecha here had a 1 millisecond delay. Destruction flame spiral. Thunder roar. Xia Xingchen's omniscience field unfolded, keenly capturing this insignificant 1 millisecond delay, and launched his strongest attack, one blue and one red energy beams, like two giant dragons entangled with each other, fiercely bombarded the body of mechanical King Kong. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.